Hello and welcome to episode 139 of The Crate and Crowbar. My name is Chris Thurston. It's the 3rd of May 2016 and today I'm joined by Tom Francis.
Hello.
And Philippa War.
Hello.
Today is a news day. A news day.
Very newsy.
A very newsy day by the standards of this part of the year.
Newsday Tuesday.
Newsy Tuesday.
Coming to you on Friday.
Coming to you on Friday. It's Newsy Tuesday. And the news is, well, first bit of news is a formal announcement of something we were making fun of last week. Call of Duty Infinite Warfare by Infinity Ward.
Yeah.
Which I would like to say for the record, I was completely right. It's in space, but not like a lot in space, a bit in space. Such as Earth to Mars in the near future, as opposed to very far away.
Is Mars confirmed?
It looked a bit like Mars. They gave the impression of colonies in space.
Yeah, we just watched this trailer and I'd seen it before, but I had absorbed nothing of it, so I didn't even realize. I remember seeing some like flying things in space, but I just thought it was like a jet fight that got out of control. and then they calmed down.
Wind it in, jet fighters! No! We're going all the way to the moon this time, you crazy bastards.
Now that I see it again, it is kind of robots on Mars.
Well, it's 3 different trailers, really, isn't it? It's standard Call of Duty trailer, space Call of Duty trailer, and then Modern Warfare, like, reboot trailer.
that bit at the end. Yeah, for sure. I will say this. So, as somebody who has literally never played a Call of Duty single-player campaign.
Really?
No, never. It's I literally never don't give a shit, and Modern War settings are basically the one thing in games that genuinely puts me off. I saw the bit where there's like a couple of jets and like big spaceshipy jets, and they're all banking up into the atmosphere with big whooshy engines, and then the clouds give way to blue sky and then to space, and then the wings on the jets flip out and they're starfighters now. And I was like, I'm going to play this.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, that's the moment that I got super, super excited about No Man's Sky.
So look how that turned out.
You might also like No Man's Sky.
I like all the things that have spaceships in them, but
game.
I enjoy a 6 to 8 hour linear corridor shooter where people are called things like Graves and O'Brien and stuff explodes, and then Graves or O'Brien dies at the end and everyone's sad. Like, I will play that. Like, I'll watch that movie, you know?
Brian O'Graves.
Brian O'Graves.
That's his name now.
Brian O'Graves in space. I will play that.
And then lovingly stroking the name on the memorial wall.
Exactly, because we've got to remember the service of our fallen space countrymen. You can't fall in space, though.
Floating.
Pushed.
Yeah.
This one has someone called Top Cat Sovereign, which I'm very impressed with.
That might be an objective.
That feels like someone who chose their own call sign.
Or just kept hitting randomly generate until they got one that they quite liked.
Do you know what would be amazing if, and I definitely do this if I was asked to write the script for a Call of Duty game, because they do get more absurd with the kind of military, phonetic stuff, like, every game. I would have the characters' call signs be actual online Call of Duty handles.
XXX Weed Killer.
Yeah, exactly. This is Trump 711. Tell my wife I love her.
Tell my wife vote Trump.
Oh, God.
Tell my wife smoke weed every day.
Tell my wife, and then just an MLG air horn sound. 360 no feelings.
Oh.
Spin 360 degrees and deploy a Snoop Dogg gif to show respect to our fallen soldiers in space. I don't know. I think I've ignored that series for long enough that now I will probably play the one with the spaceships in it. Genuinely, because I'm an easily led sheep man.
There were, in the last one I played, which I think was Advanced Warfare, was that one?
Yeah.
That was the last one, wasn't it?
Yeah, with the augmented arms and stuff. It has augmented arms, I'm going to play it, obviously.
That was
Yeah, exactly. They've crossed through your era of science fiction into mine.
And they had like a sort of special future jet in that, and that section was so bad. There was a fucking ceiling on it. So if you went too high, you just lost control of your plane. Like, even if you just went above you were weaving through like stacks of rock. And so I thought, well, I'll just go over these, but then you hit the invisible ceiling that makes your plane stall and ends the game.
It's because you're secretly flying in a biplane from 1918.
Yeah.
They'll definitely do that again. That's the thing. I've got no lie about that. They'll have that whole sequence where you fly out the atmosphere and then you just run out. But space has a big wall in it.
Yeah, fair enough. You go into space, I think you probably would stall.
Yeah, that's true.
At least.
That bit makes so little sense, but it's, oh man.
I really like those trailers though. Like I've always quite liked some of the bluster of Call of Duty. Like it has a whole heap of things that I'm sort of more uneasy with, but like there's something in me that just responds with kind of wide-eyed when something so sort of over the top happens. Like they've done it with League of Legends with the MSI this week. So it's the mid-season invitational. We don't really need to go into what it is. It's just a tournament, but they've done a whole bunch of like artwork out of smoke, and so the EU team rock up as represented by purple wolves made of smoke, and then there's the LMS is like this sort of green smoke panther thing, and like then the wild card is an archer it's going, who will own the rift, and in sort of
sports, Pip,
semi-rhyming couplets and things. So there's, and I was just sat there kind of getting like, not excited possibly for the right reasons, but it's so overblown that there's part of me that just really appreciates, sort of not holding back on any of this stuff.
There's
and
like
just going, yeah, right.
4 different sequences where different combinations of people in that trailer, where different combinations of people hold each other as they float haplessly through space in the aftermath of some sort of spaceship or space station based military disaster.
Well, that's the thing,
including a man and a robot.
To work out, because in Call of Duty, a lot of Call of Duty revolves around sort of concerned looking people helping other concerned looking people up.
Yeah.
And so without gravity, that's going to probably be the major stumbling block for this.
This could be grabbing each other's hands.
Yeah, it'll be the gravity thing, as in the movie Gravity, where you're drifting through space and George Clooney comes up with his little jetpack thrusters and gravity. I'm assuming that'll happen.
Maybe that's a DLC.
And then you
Zombie George Clooney.
No, he's a kill streak unlock.
The Clooney drone.
Exactly.
The price you pay is you have to tell him how your child died on the ride back.
Jesus.
Oh my God.
Did he get an Oscar for that?
I don't know.
Did anyone get an Oscar for that?
He shouldn't have. He just did his normal, charming self.
Brutal but fair.
I've actually forgotten so much about that movie that for a moment I wondered whether you were making an ER reference in amongst the Gravity references.
No.
I was just like, wait, what?
It's all right, Gravity. I like
concept.
Can't live without it, really.
it. Exactly.
The other thing that was announced was Dawn of War 3.
Speaking of things, so last week we went from talking about Call of Duty in space to Warhammer, and this week we're going to go from Call of Duty in space to Warhammer. They've also announced Dawn of War 3.
Well, I suppose you'd have to, so that it can then go on forever and be Infinity War.
Yeah, that's true. Well, because we said this last week, in the grim darkness of the far future, there is only corpses raining from the sky onto a smiling space marine.
In 3 neat columns that they spell out the 3 of the title.
That trailer is fucking bananas.
It is. I really like it, actually. It's all CG, and it's just the 3 factions that the game is about fighting and in like very bombastic way, but also it's just kind of surreal. It's set in like sort of clouds, and it's not clear how any one scene relates to the next. And then
it's like Valhalla or
full
something.
of just imagery, but not in a kind of wanky way, because it's all corpses and death.
So is it like The Last Judgment, or like, one of the sort of...
It feels like, I don't know, some sort of purgatorial cycle of like death and fighting. It's actually...
Or like the end times.
So the one thing to caveat it with is, like, Plug Time, PC Gamer had the exclusive on this, so we've got a big cover that comes out this week that has all information about the actual game, because Tom Senior went and played it a couple weeks ago. And
did he play it hard?
What?
Like,
I actually don't know if he did play it. I know he saw it. I can't remember. I don't know if he actually
observed it in the
he
wild.
He is very good at every game Relic have ever made, so
okay.
Presumably.
I think I was mostly asking because last week's Warhammer chat revealed non-good strategizing.
That's true, yeah.
From the Tom.
Tom.
Oh, yes. Well, no, I now have to. No definite
I'm
articles
innocent in
here.
this. I'm not on trial here. Although I am bad at many Relic games.
But yeah, so the game itself is actually, you can see some screenshots on PC Gamer at the moment, has moved visually away from grimdark towards a bit more colourful, looks a bit more like a tabletop game actually, like big, colourful miniatures. It's a lot more zoomed out than Dawn of War 2 was. It's not a sort of tactical game anymore. It's back to being a base building, strategy game. So that trailer stands out for being almost a Warhammer 40k mood piece.
Yeah, because that is grimdark, isn't it?
Yeah, it's extremely grimdark. It's a man smiling because he knows that his head being squashed by a big orc
will be in the glory of the Emperor.
Is for the glory of the Emperor. A dead man in a big chair.
Yeah. It sounds like it's interesting to read their sort of description of it, because Dawn of War 2 changed the focus to being about heroes. And you had a squad of like 4 heroes. I think you could have up to 6. And they had special abilities, and it was basically an RPG, like a very tactical RPG, but you were basically 4 guys, and you used hotkeys to use all your special abilities and land on people in cool ways. And the combat was a lot more kind of had better feel to it than Dawn of War 1, and was much more decisive. You do something that just kind of destroyed the whole squad that you attacked. And then they tried to kind of, I remember, I can't remember who said this, maybe Graham, someone was telling me that, Relic, found that with Dawn of War 2 that they'd gone in that direction to see if they'd get a new audience, and they succeeded, and they got the new audience, and they also lost the entire old audience. So it ended up being about as successful as the first one, because they just replaced the entire audience with a different audience. And then Dawn of War 2 Retribution, which is the expansion pack, tried to sort of backtrack it a little bit and go more in the army direction. So it's interesting that this is as well, because that, Dawn of War 2 Retribution is really good, but it sort of marketed itself as being like, oh, it's back to the big armies, and you even had a base of sorts, I think. And it wasn't that part of it wasn't that interesting. It was still basically great because it was great at giving you 4 really cool heroes who had brilliant abilities, and they mixed together in really fun ways. And having like a bunch of disposable squads in addition to that wasn't that brilliant. So yeah, this is like this time they're going for apparently a sort of hard line between you have heroes or you have elite units, which can be heroes or a really good squad. And those are things that you acquire over the course of the campaign, and you can level them up. But you only have 3 slots for those. And then the rest of it is just your army, which is they call line units, who I think don't have special abilities, and they just kind of stand in the field and just shoot people.
That's where the scale difference comes in. So that's the thing that the trailer is trying to communicate. So I think what Tom saw was that the elite units were the Imperial Knights, which are like sort of titanic kind of walking battle tanks that are like 1,000,000 times taller than a Stormtrooper. And those have loads of special abilities, and you manually aim their powers and stuff like that, like Dawn of War 2, but they're surrounded by grunts, essentially. And so that's why you see a whole bunch of big things punching each other in the trailer and then falling on a blissed out Space Marine. It's
interesting because those must have been added after I kind of fell out of touch with Warhammer as like a, miniatures game. Because I remember Dreadnoughts, which were the biggest thing on the kind of 40k field at that time. And then also Titans, which are the completely different scale ones, which are literally, the size of,
several skyscrapers.
Yeah, I was going to say skyscraper. Actually, we have no man-made thing in this world that's as big as a Titan. And these are something that's much bigger than a Dreadnought, but not that big. And I didn't know about them.
Yeah.
But they look cool.
They do look cool. So I don't know how much is sort of known at the moment otherwise, but it's cool that Relic are returning to it and that they're again reinventing it, which is kind of rare. I can't think of another series that's just been a different game every time.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll find a third entirely separate audience for this one.
The funny thing is, maybe they get half of the Dawn of War 1 audience back and half of the Dawn of War 2 audience and they end up with the exact same number of sales. The funny thing is that they, since Dawn of War 2 itself, which was an RPG, they suddenly got really good at RPG systems. And so Dawn of War 2 Last Stand, which is like a sort of a mode that I think they added after launch, for free. And then I think since become standalone. I think you can just play it as a game on Steam now. Is an amazing, sort of survival game, 3-player co-op, and you're just in an arena with different waves of enemies. And the system for leveling up in that is really, really good. You keep earning new abilities, but you only have a certain number of slots for them. And the design of those slots and how the different items combine to make different builds is just endlessly fascinating. And every time you unlock a new thing, it suddenly realize, oh, this doesn't fit with my current build, but if I scrap this and go back to this other thing that I rejected earlier, now I've got a really tanky build where I regenerate health and also leech health and, stuff like that. And then Dawn of War 2 Retribution, had a much better level up system for your heroes, and all the new abilities you got for them were like really exciting. And my Orc squad in that was just amazing. I just had the ability to my main commander could, I think, switch places with anybody, and he was the tank. And so you would run in like your really high damage weak guy and do loads and loads of damage. And I think that guy could also explode, and then he could teleport and explode. And then when he was low on health, I would just have my commander switch places with him. So everyone who was bearing down on him would suddenly be facing like the massive spiky tank guy. And it was awesome.
And also, then they made Company Heroes 2. And then
yeah.
They're a good studio, Relic. They're just one of the most, given that, they make one type of game, really, strategy games or RPG-ish strategy games. It's interesting how much diversity they've managed to get out of that formula in a relatively short space of time. I say relatively short space of time. It's been like 8 years or something. When did Dawn of War 2 come out? 2010? I don't know. Yeah, I don't even want to guess.
Yeah, it feels like a very long time ago. I remember reviewing it. Yeah, it must be, I don't know how long since Dawn of War 1?
A long time. And let's not think about it. But yeah, actually, so this, it was interesting, that trailer kind of struck me because I was thinking about this in a different context today as well. So one thing that trailer did really successfully is it made Warhammer 40k look really weird, which it is. Like, it is a fundamentally strange universe, given how much it's inspired, that is relatively taken for granted now. Things like, Space Marines, and obviously it borrowed a lot from Aliens and things like that, but it made everything kind of obsessively weird. It took James Cameron's Aliens and said, what if these were British character actors and also devout Catholics? And all this strange stuff. Because, and this would potentially link to something you've been playing, Pip. I was struck by how weirdly lifeless the story stuff surrounding Overwatch is. And the reason that it struck me is because, Blizzard's storytelling and world building otherwise has never struck me as like totally anodyne. There's always been, some humor there or something about the art style or the world or the characters that has some traction. And I think Overwatch has brilliantly designed characters from a mechanical point of view and from a visual design point of view. But they released a new little short film today, which is pretending to be funny, and they put out a couple of comics and stuff, and they're all really, really empty feeling, and they don't feel like they're doing anything for this world, or they don't make me care about a world, even though it's attached to a game I really, really like. And it's interesting that, given how derivative of Warhammer 40k StarCraft is, and how derivative of Warhammer Fantasy Warcraft is, that I never really thought of it before, that actually all of the kind of truly bizarre, kind of gritty, weird, 2000 AD style comic stuff stayed in the Games Workshop licenses, and Blizzard took them away and essentially made the family versions of them. And lacking a similar source material, I think Overwatch feels like just the top layer, but without the legacy of this weird, idiosyncratic other thing underneath it. I don't know how true that is, and there's almost certainly going to be angry Blizzard people. But
the first sort of cinematic for Overwatch, to me felt very much like wanting to kind of strike the Pixar tone of like The Incredibles or something, like a world of brave, cartoony heroes, and sort of wide-eyed, innocent kids looking up to them. But I haven't seen much of it since.
It's really strange because I honestly would not blame anyone, especially somebody who saw the most recent, today's thing. So the open beta went live today. And today's trailer is all about how Overwatch is scattered and they're not around anymore, and there are these evil robots that rose up, and Overwatch needed to to get rid of them, but, you know, Overwatch are gone, and Overwatch need to come back and fight and save humanity. And it's this rousing ending to the trailer all about Overwatch coming back. But that's not what the game is about at all. Like, you'd be completely, if you saw that advert on YouTube or on TV or something, you would be completely on your right to think, oh cool, this is a game about superheroes who fight robots, which it absolutely isn't. It's a game about a bunch of characters from a world where that happened, fighting in assorted configurations in a team-based strategy.
Because they fight each other, right?
Yeah, and they can be multiples of each other. You can fight a team that's all one of them. So, like, it's
that was always, like, lurking in the background of the TF2 shorts. The more character and personality they gave them, the stranger it would be to see two copies of one class in the same room. And I think in the Meet the Spy video, you do see, like, I think 2 soldiers. But it didn't matter that much because it was a joke anyway. So.
Yeah. That's the thing, like, I think the whole idea of building a story around a competitive, or building a world with lore into a competitive game is absurd. Like, it's never going to work beyond a certain point. And the reason the TF2 stuff, including the comics, is so brilliant is they fully accept that the entire premise on which their entire fiction is based is total nonsense. And it starts from there. And so it's why it's funny and subversive rather than earnest. Like the comic that's currently linked from the Overwatch page on Battle.net is the Reinhardt comic, and it's fucking terrible. Like, Blizzard could get whoever they wanted to write that. They really could. And so I don't know whether they just need better writers or less control over their writers, but it's shit. Like, it's proper, like, pre-order comic that you never even look at bad. And it's like, they can do whatever they want. Why are they doing this? But the reason I brought it up was because another game launched today that is combining multiplayer with a colourful cast of characters and storytelling. And Blizzard's decision to start the Overwatch open beta today is in no way a competitive marketing thing. Pip, you've been playing it. What is it?
Do you mean Battleborn?
I do mean Battleborn,
I
Pip.
could have said that in so much less of a weird way.
But thank you for riding this segue in a weird way.
Indeed. Riding side saddle on my segue into Battleborn. And so...
As you do.
That went strange places. Anyway, so Battleborn is Gearbox's the hero shooter-y thingamajigger.
I think so. There was a terrible tweet by Randy Pitchford today.
Was there?
And I don't mean to call him up personally, because I think he might have deleted it because I couldn't find it because it was so bad I wanted to show Tom Senior. Where he described Battleborn, I think trying to be explanatory, but not as, I can remember several of the words, but it was a hobby grade co-op experience, competitive esports, meta experience.
I think that neatly sums up the thing that I was saying the other week, where it's that jack of all trades, master of none, as far as I've experienced it so far. So I've only played a couple of hours of it so far, and I played it at a preview event as well. So I've had a little bit of experience with in the open beta weekend thingy. So I have actually played quite a lot of it. So it's got this story campaign where the main draw of it, I guess, is that you partner up with strangers or friends or whoever and do it in this co-op way. And sort of, you know, you've got an overarching aim and everything, and you're sort of fighting, from what I've played, it's mostly sort of big bosses and waves of minions in sort of smaller objectives and escorting things around. And you can play it solo if you want, but the game really pushes you towards online multiplayer co-op.
You say it's hobby grade co-op.
Well,
I don't know what that means. Does that mean it is deep or it isn't deep?
I don't know.
I don't know if a hobby is something that...
I don't know, because I've never exactly had a handle on what it is, if you see what I mean. Like, nobody has really ever sat and explained it to me in a way that gives me the kernel of what it is, except when I spoke to Randy Varnell, he was saying that I think he's the executive producer, I believe, on the game, and he was saying that it's about characters. It's like this cast of characters that you then take into all of these different modes. But I from what I've played so far, there's nothing, and it's interesting because you were saying about lore, there's nothing that keeps me anchored to any of these characters, makes me care about them, makes me want to play them, makes them sort of interesting particularly. And I've sort of been fiddling around with them and sort of doing a variety of missions with them, just trying to sort of find a niche, but they all feel really paper thin kind of thing. Like, you know, I'm playing as a 4-armed, sort of pyromaniac magic alien thing called Arendi at the moment. And like, you know, she sort of says, you know, her barks and things are kind of to give you an idea of this creature who's kind of like really intense, I guess, but you know, also really destructive and just sort of wants to set things on fire. But they don't really seem to come together to form a character identity properly. You know, she'll sort of say things like, oh, I wish I didn't love you so much, or it's something like that. And then like, well, no, I mean, you know, it's something along those lines. And then, you know, there's other ones about just setting fire to things. And you're kind of like, well, you know, and I kind of get that it's like this destructive intensity, but it's like, it never quite comes together to form a thing that you can anchor into.
Do they have like intro videos or anything?
No.
So that's the other thing, is like in the prologue you get introduced to like the first character that you play as. And you also get introduced to another character that you pick up through that mission. But then suddenly it just unlocks, I think, 5 more, or, you know, sort of a handful.
These guys are
actually,
awesome.
weirdly, you don't get that character through that mission.
Yeah.
You get that character for completing the campaign.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, so you get her to like help you in that thing. So you're introduced to her, but she isn't one of the ones that you actually get unlocked for completing the prologue. And so it's just this weird thing that doesn't seem to quite feed you characters or story in a way that make any of them make sense or sort of make them accessible or desirable or interesting to you, as far as I can see. But I'm also slightly kind of irked by it because it just is this mishmash. Like, it doesn't feel like a well-designed, well sort of honed product in the way that, to use Overwatch as an example, that does. You know, it doesn't do the lore side of things well, but it does feel good to play. And this does not feel neat. You know, you'll be doing objectives, but you'll realise that you and the rest of the team don't quite know where you've got to go, and you're all sort of bumbling along, or there's waves of minions to kill at this point, but you don't know if maybe you're just missing one, or there's a really awkwardly long pause for you to, I don't know, gather the loot that's everywhere, or like...
It's really...
Yeah.
It's such a strange game. Like, I played maybe 2 hours of it now, mostly multiplayer, and I find it incredibly hard to put a handle on exactly where my problems with it lie, because it's obviously very, I don't know, polished the right word. There's obviously it's obviously very deliberate. It doesn't feel like it's been skimped on or like not carefully planned. I'll put it that way. It doesn't feel like the game they made by accident, or it doesn't feel like the product of compromise necessarily.
But it does feel like it doesn't have focus.
I would agree with that, but I think there's a big difference between, the reason I bring it up is because there are essentially 2 gearboxes, right? There's the gearbox that made Borderlands and Borderlands 2, and there's the gearbox that made Aliens Colonial Marines. And the question I had coming into this is, like, which gearbox are you getting? Are you getting the kind of the work for hire-y kind of real, like, I mean, you know, Aliens Colonial Marines is a bad game. Or, you know, the great stuff that built them as fan base people love. And obviously the look of the thing is much closer to Borderlands, and the tone of it is much closer to Borderlands. And it has, I think, the same degree of production values and attention paid to it. But Borderlands is a relatively simple proposition. It's like, what if Diablo was funny and first person and a shooter? And it's kind of, you know, all of its other things and success has spin from that. Whereas this is really fucking complicated. Like, trying to sum it up, like, the touchstones I would come down to are Skylanders is a big one, a surprisingly big one. It's basically collecting action figures with all of the depth of meaning of like an action figure. It feels like picking an action figure off a shelf for a cartoon you've never seen. and having to divine that character's ideas and what they're about.
I'd say that's true, yeah.
From the box and the packaging, because you've only got the packaging because you've never seen the show, right?
Yeah.
I mean, ironically, it does open with a cartoon, but it's just like a vignette that doesn't really...
It's a really long music video cartoon that sort of doesn't really do anything
well,
for me
yeah,
at
like,
all.
well, it's a shame because because both Borderlands games start with like a music video vignette, and I thought it worked in both cases, and this is the one where it doesn't. So yeah, you feel you're getting the surface level thing, and partly, so I kind of agree. So they start you right in medias res, like there's already stuff happening and characters who know each other talking around you as the game starts, and as you jump into the first one, you don't get the origin story of anybody, you don't get anything like that. It's just sort of on the ground and go. Which I think is probably a good choice if you're going to introduce a huge cast of characters and stuff. Like, just start, don't like labor it with like backstory necessarily. But it's so talky constantly in that Borderlands style, which you'll either like or find incredibly grating, because everything is like bants.
Yeah.
Constant bants, and it maintains a level of bants that doesn't fucking stop. And some of it is okay, and some of it's not, and most of it's just sort of like, like, it's not hilarious, but it's not terrible. It's like better written than most games because they've actually tried to write jokes, whereas rather than just say like, get to the LZ over and over again. But it's not like...
There's no variation in tone.
There's very little variation in tone. And then occasionally you'll get thick fucking slabs of lore. So characters will be doing bants about lore that you don't know yet, about the history of their races and stuff. And I think if you are willing to kind of buy in wholesale, then maybe you get really absorbed in that and then you start to care about the characters. I don't know. I've never felt older as a human being. You know what I mean? It's like,
it
was like a child trying to explain Power Rangers to me. Like,
because I felt like, especially visually, I find it really noisy, and I felt like a parody of a parent who's listening to the radio and going, but it's just noise. And then I'm like, but I'm cool. I know cool. I can tell people about cool.
All right, the kids are out of touch.
I would genuinely, I play a lot of games, and I play a lot of competitive games and complicated multiplayer things, right? As we both do, Pip. And I feel like I can pick them up pretty quickly, right? I've been to loads of press events where I sit down with somebody's new MOBA or new MMO.
Yeah.
Even if it's got a bunch of new ideas, and I kind of get it quite quickly. Like, and I'm not usually, you usually have that thing where the devs lean over you and offer to explain something. And I'm usually like, no, I kind of get it. Like, I get what XP is, or I get why I'd be gathering gold or something like that.
Yeah. Or even like, I get what this like progression tree is of my character during this match.
Yeah. Okay. Battleborn. I've literally never been more confused by a game in my actual fucking life. Like, it is the most visually confusing thing I think I might have ever seen. And that might be hyperbole, and probably is. But
I think it's like the telegraphing of attacks is slightly off. And also the, like, you know how WildStar had that really clear system of things on the floor appearing to show you where you were going to get hit or not, or healed or wherever. Like, it gets lost in all the other visual noise here. Like, you'll sort of go, like, as Arendi, there's this thing that it does where you can cast a spell that does like a torrent of sort of upward flame damage, I think, something like that. But I spent a lot of time faffing in fights to actually see on the floor where the hell it was going to actually be positioned, because I couldn't quite tell and I couldn't quite land it right because I couldn't see. Like, if it was just a timing thing, I'd cop to that, but I just couldn't see where it was actually going on the floor half the time.
So,
or like the terrain height would be weird and get in the way, or, you'd sort of just spend a lot of time faffing, or the levels are quite sprawly, so they wouldn't direct you to the thing that you needed to be in,
it's like loads of different types of noise on top of each other, because you have just simply the visual noise of the game. It's very cartoony and it's very rich. Like, there's no sort of sense that characters need to pop from a backdrop at all. So like, you'll be fighting in a red, black and gold imperial spacescape, fighting silver and red robots among red, black and other color characters, who are all surrounded by particle effects at all times and jumping and doing things, and abilities contribute to that, and bullets. And then when you shoot things, big numbers will pop out in a different color. And there are health bars and names and stuff to track. And all of this stuff. And that's just when you got into what's in the game world. And then you get into what's on the UI, and you have timers, health bars, mission status things, XP bars, score, 3 different fucking resources that you're collecting, mini-map, your abilities and their cooldowns and modifiers on them, like a level up menu that's really confusing but requires you to read in the moment.
That's the thing that I found the worst, because I would like have a skim read of the character's abilities before I would go into a level or a mission or a map or whatever. And that I could get, you know, I was like, okay, I have a handle on what this character does and I think how they're intended to be played. But then the augment system represents itself as a kind of helix. It's supposed to be, I think, a kind of DNA like mutation as the game progresses kind of thing. And you have to pick the left or right node on sort of each of these levels of augmenting as you move down this DNA spiral. But they do very specific things to particular abilities, and to take Arendi as an example again, it was stuff like, oh, this ability reduces the cooldown of that ability and does this poison damage to, like, it was something like that, or maybe I'm confusing it with the mushroom person, but like, it's that kind of level of detail that it gives you, and you need to do it in the middle of a fight, or, you know, because that's when you're earning the experience to do that leveling up, and you're kind of like, I genuinely don't know at this point. I guess left, right, dunno, whatever, you know.
It's super interesting because, like, games with fast-paced leveling tend to have adopted the same rough system. So Heroes of the Storm is an exception because it also asks you to pick from sort of like asymmetrical talents that might all do different things. But
I find that easier to pass, though.
there's something about Blizzard's UI design that makes it easier to handle. Also, the pace of the game is a lot slower. This is a shooter, and you're literally bringing up a menu in front of the things that are trying to kill you to pick something. And like, so there are other games, Dota does it, you know, Dota does it, League, whatever, Paragon, any of these games. They limit your sort of quick skill options to put one more level in this, put one more level in this, put a level in stats or something like that. And each of those things is just a straight power boost to a power you already understand, which is fine. Battleborn has like Diablo or Borderlands style skill progression where it's like, it'll be something like changes your slow to also do damage over time, or changes your mark target ability to auto apply a slow on the 3rd hit, which is always stuff that you need to read. And in RPGs, it's traditionally the thing that you decide when you're in town selling your stuff, not when you are in the middle of a fight.
There's no battle town.
Yeah, there's no battle town in Battleborn.
Yeah, so unless you just leave all of your leveling up to do after the fight where it would have been useful, like it's a bit...
And it's weird because it applies, I mean, because at least if you're playing on your own, it pauses.
Yeah.
But
well, no, it doesn't. It slows it right down. And so, like, you can still just get attacked. And also, dialogue still happens, but it just does it in this really weird, slowed down, dying, like, tape player voice.
Yeah.
And so when I was in the prologue, like, looking at my, my level up options, I was kind of like, am I missing important, like, explanatory stuff?
When this just feels like the kind of top level decision that someone needed to step back from. So hang on, is it actually fun to shoot numbers out of a robot and then while doing that be asked to read 2 different skill descriptions while people shout banter at you? It is overwhelming. Like, it is just...
Well, the other thing is, like,
I sound like an old man saying that. So.
Well, I think it's also quite difficult because they've hemmed themselves into this situation where it's obviously like the main push is for this co-op side of things, or at least multiplayer, because there are sort of PvP options. But it does this thing where when you boot into those, or when you queue for those, you then, when you've got your squad of 5 people together, you then have to vote on one of 3 levels that you want to play, or one of 3 missions that you want to play, or, you know, the 4th option is don't care. And so they can't even curate your progress through a story. You're sort of getting all of these missions at random, it feels like. And I haven't played it long enough to know what the progression system is, because they only had 2 of them unlocked for the open beta. So, but yeah, I'm sort of, okay, where am I in this story that you're trying to tell me?
And then you zoom out from that level of confusion, which is just the things that are happening when you're in a game. And you've touched on it, but the meta thing, whatever it was, that was the third thing in the semicolon list, is, so the first thing you see when you load the game is a huge page-filling advert for the season pass that you have to close. Which is like, please stop. Like, season passes, I get, are maybe a necessary evil for some AAA games, but don't make it the first thing you see. Like, if you don't want your new customer to see your thing as a money sink, and maybe not just make you feel like you just bought into a product, don't do that. Then there are individual, you level up your account, you also level up each individual character. Doing that unlocks titles and more lore based on achievements. There's an extensive achievement and titles system.
You also get an inventory, don't you, of gear that you can take into battle in various configurations.
So you get loot boxes and through missions that contain a random selection of gear, themed around one of the 5 different factions that players' characters can belong to, which you can also buy with in-game currency, but not real currency, even though it's kind of presented as a microtransaction store within the inventory. And these amount to passive buffs like 6.2% movement speed after receiving a hit that you plug into your character and then buy in-game with the same resources that you use to build turrets and dispensers in the overworld. Like, it literally is a game with every single idea in it.
See, that's the thing, like, I just need it to not be as noisy. Like, I need it to have a focus and then I can, like, get to grips with it. But at the moment, it's like it's shouting at me it's like having 5 different people shouting at me and trying to work out what they want.
I guess this is it, like, because I don't like it really, but I hesitate, because I think some people really will, and I hesitate to kind of completely, but it's not, because that's why I sort of say, because of Gearbox's mixed record, it's not Aliens Colonial Marines, underproduced, just sort of drab crap. It's it's the loudest game ever made. Like,
for me, it's like, it's not about whether it's bad or good. It's the fact that I just can't get anywhere with it, because it's, every time I try and find something to hook onto, it throws 4 more things that I have to deal with at me.
But try this guy!
Or like a new system, or like, oh, well, you queued, but you probably want to play this level, but you kind of can't seem to. Like, I wanted to, after the prologue, it sort of gives you a bit of, like a cutscene where they're talking about other things that they're going to do with their next few missions, it feels like, or places they could go, or tasks they could fulfill. And in my head, I kind of had an idea of where I would like to go next, like the thing that sounded interesting to me. But then, I guess unless I stick with the single player, I didn't quite see whether there was a way of doing that. Like, whether I could...
Yeah, whether you're allowed to...
Whether I could just say, I want to queue for this. Is there anyone else out there who's in the don't care pool who would just do it? Or
someone else out there who doesn't care.
And also, I mean, just if you're going to put that kind of stuff out there as this multiplayer experience, or push it more towards that, I played it as that, and the only time anybody spoke, used the voice comms push to talk thing, they were saying, what was it? Stop fucking pushing me, for fuck's sake, to somebody else on the team. And that was that's the sum total of all communication that's happened in that game. Was just somebody being cross with somebody else.
I played...
Like, not abusive in the same way that other games can be, but it was just like, oh, well.
I played the multiplayer mode, and we won, and it was literally the most confused I might have ever been.
Who were you? What were you playing?
I was Marquis, the Tory
posh robot guy, yeah.
No, so actually, I think the writing works best in competitive multiplayer because there's lots of sort of specific barks.
Okay.
And each character, like, it works in that context because you're not being asked to give a shit about these people as part of a story. It's that multiplayer thing where things can just have one personality trait and shout about that personality trait constantly. They do talk too much, but they all have different ways of addressing enemy characters. So if you're like aiming down your scope and there are people running towards you, your character will say something like, I think Marquis will say something like, there are prowls here. which is quite nice. And I heard another guy going, douchebag coming, which was, like that kind of thing I kind of enjoy.
Okay.
That's kind of silly and fun. I think they have specific ones as well. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, there's a character called Thorn who's like an archer.
Yeah.
And
She's like a Eldred.
Space elf.
I think the game race is Eldred or something.
Don't say Eldar, basically. And like I aimed at her, and I'm pretty sure he said something like, "Look, it's a crap ranger," and like that sort of thing. I can get by. That's actually quite fun, and so that's okay. And like it sounded nice when I shot the people, but literally it was like just lights and sounds and numbers and shit and objectives and side objectives and dispensers and accelerators and suppliers and
what was the
bots and
competitive mode?
I had to destroy a big robot.
One.
It was a lane pushy one.
Okay, yeah,
there are 2 lane pushy ones.
Oh, okay, because the one that I played that was a lane pushy one was you have, I think it's just one main lane, but you have like 2 sentry turrety bot things, and you have to just get as far down there as possible in the time limit, and
it's like, I think there's definitely a game there because there's all these different systems in play.
Yeah.
But it's literally the most confusing thing to start playing because you've got resources and you can build a turret. Should you build a turret? Maybe, yeah. So I just did everything it told me to. I just always shot people and we won 100-0 and I didn't die. So that was cool. But it really is like a case study in like how not to introduce a complicated game to people. And I say that as someone who's played 2,500 hours of Dota.
Well, that's the thing. I've played 2,000 hours. I just crawled over the 2,000 hour mark earlier this week. And yeah, it's just so odd to me that it makes so little sort of cohesive sense at the moment that I can't seem to get a handle on it quite. And I hope that that's what's coming across rather than slating it. It's just that sense of what is this and why is it making it so difficult to actually get at the kernel of presumably what's there.
It's hard to describe, and we spent like half an hour trying to describe how hard to describe it is. I think the thing I would say about it is given that it is, going head to head with Overwatch in the cartoon, brightly coloured Saturday morning cartoon people killing each other genre, the amount of work that Overwatch does to be easy to pass, despite how complicated it is like, Overwatch does a billion invisible things with sound and colour.
There was a fantastic talk about the sound design while I was at GDC, and just like the fine tuning that they did and the tweaking and the fiddling that they did to make that work seamlessly and for you to just not notice that it was working was. There's all this stuff they do to make complicated game things intuitive, essentially, and to allow you to experience it. Firstly, it's just a colourful game about biffing people, and then ultimately as a more competitive team game, and that to happen sort of seamlessly that you probably don't appreciate until you find out what its absence looks like. And from my personal experience of Battleborn multiplayer, its absence looks like Battleborn. Like it looks like just a giant cauldron of game systems that I imagine a dedicated community of people will resolve into something meaningful. But fucking hell, like, as some, like, no. Tom, having listened to us for a while, do you have any idea what we're... Okay, good. Right, fine.
We've done our best to explain this.
I did, I'd seen like a trailer of it.
You watched over my shoulder for like a minute.
Yeah, you had 4 arms, I understood that much. And from the previous video I watched, they mentioned it was a dev playthrough and, well, not playthrough, but like they were playing it. And they did mention something that sounded cool, which was that the guy with wings, he can like glide. He can't fly upwards. But one of his wings is slightly dicky, and so he drifts slightly to the right when he glides. Which is nice.
It is jokes. That is its sense of humor, and that is great in parts. But I don't think you can carry the world's most visually overwhelming thing with that necessarily. I don't know. I don't fucking know. Maybe I'm just too old.
I'd be really interested to like read what people who are really getting on with it have to say. I'll probably go on the subreddit a bit later and actually sort of try and see it through their eyes as well. Yeah. Sometimes that helps. Like,
interesting.
Sort a
I had a look.
Out.
I had a look, and my read on it was that some subreddit feels a little bit fanboyish in the way that you'd expect day one of the thing to be.
Yeah.
But in the sense that, like, there are people going, like, this is the greatest game I've ever played, and always specifically putting at the end, and fuck Overwatch, because it's getting that tribal gamer thing that's really ugly when it happens. But there was also an undercurrent of someone going, I don't know, I'm not really feeling it so far, and then, like, just a massive thread of people explaining why they're wrong. Okay. So I don't know if that's necessarily the appropriate read. I definitely am interested to hear what people make of it, though. Like, if people are really getting on with it, then do say so, because I'm certainly not ruling that out. It's just, for me, it's been a weird 2 hours.
I've got an entire day of it tomorrow. So I will maybe be able to report back at some other point. Hopefully a bit more sensibly.
Tom.
Yeah, Tom.
You've got a Vive now.
I have. Okay.
Tell us about the magical world you live in.
Oh, well, I wish we'd pretended that you were wearing it right now.
There's good news both for people who are planning to buy one, already have one and on its way, and for people who are not going to buy one, either because they can't or they don't have space, or they just want to skip this generation, because you're both right.
No need to fight.
The good news for people who are going to skip this generation is that it's very much the first generation of a thing. It's, God, it's a pain. Like, it's very expensive, and then when I tried it at Valve, I think... I might be misremembering, but my impression was that it had two lighthouses, which is what they called them. And they were like things, sort of like tripods that you just put in the corners of your room, and that was it. The actual retail thing just has two tiny boxes, which seems like an improvement. They're smaller, but you have to find a way to suspend them at least 6.5 feet off the ground in the opposite corners of your play space.
Yeah.
And that is tricky. Basically, you have to drill them into the wall. But it's
How
also...
have you done it? Is that what you've done?
Well, every possible way you can think I've done. Because I'm a naturally cautious person. I don't like to commit to anything until I've tested it.
Yeah.
And you can't test suspending something 6.5 feet off the ground without drilling a hole into the wall.
You need tall friends.
Particularly if you have wallpaper, which means you can't use the sticky fixes that would, can hold something up temporarily. So an elaborate series of tripods on top of baskets, on top of desks, sellotaping things to doors. Because I just wanted to try it before I actually drilled holes in my wall. And eventually I couldn't. I tried it in opposite corners and I was still having some trouble. And opposite corners luckily I have like a cupboard door. In fact, we're not in the room of this house that's identical to the room in my house. But if we moved one door down, you would see that there is a cupboard with a door in it that is, if you open the door, then that door is now in a good place to put a thing on top of it that will point at my play space. I also had to completely reorganize my entire room because my space was, the minimum space is 2 meters by 1.5 meters. And my bedroom is like, not small. It's got a bed in it and a desk and a chair. And behind the chair, the remaining space, if I moved everything out of it, was 1.5 by 2.95, 1.95. So like slightly less than 2 meters. And the first thing you have to do to set it up is draw a line around your play space with the controller. So you kind of trace it out. And that means you can't really lie because you can't put your hand through the wall. Like what I wanted to say is like, come on, it's 1.95 or something. Can't you just give it to me? Let's just do it and I just won't go that close to that wall.
I can't let you do that, Tom.
Particularly because I don't think anything actually requires that exact play space, right?
Yeah.
Almost everything takes place in like a square, so it's going to be 1.5 by 1.5.
I don't know, because I played the Everest demo at GDC, and it had you walking from the very corner of the play space to the opposite diagonal corner, and you had to be like right at the limits of the thing, because I kept seeing the wall marker safety thing, but like I think some of them really do push up against that. So
they know what your play space is, so they can sort of adapt to it to some extent.
You might have broken your nose though, you know.
Yeah, so the fun thing is that
climbing Everest.
I was tempted because it's in the corner of my room, so 2 of the walls are real walls, and then the other 2 walls are virtual walls defined by basically my desk and my bed. And so I'm really tempted to just like lean over my bed a tiny bit, but then that's fatal because that's what it uses to project the virtual walls in the game world. That's how it tells you to stop walking. And so if it doesn't tell you to stop walking until 5 centimeters after you should have stopped walking, you're going to hit your bed. But anyway, so I had to rearrange my entire room because the 1.5 by 2 had exactly the right amount, which means you don't have quite the right amount because you need to put the controller right to the edge of the play space. And I swiveled my whole desk around and reorganize my entire room. And then I had basically 2x2, which is great. But then it didn't work anymore. Like, it had been tracking okay, and then tracking just went nuts. It was
Did it just get bored? It was like, oh, for God's sake.
Like, just 25% of the time, where it thought the controller was would just drift off into space and shoot out 3 meters outside of my room, or glitch out wildly. And I had moved things around to what I thought were better positions. I actually bought a new tripod, to try and test this, and it was worse than ever. And then eventually I thought, okay, fuck it, I've just got to drill a hole in my wall. There's no way to test this exact position, but in theory, the exact corner of my play space, absolutely like up at the ceiling, pointing down, should be perfect. And did it. That took like a whole... Drilling through my walls is a major ordeal. It took all evening and 3 different drill bits for 2 different holes, and it was a fucking nightmare. And I finally did it. And then tracking was fucking terrible and just couldn't even trace out my play space. Just went completely mad. And I wrote out a huge email to tech support, which I knew I wouldn't get a response from. But I kind of thought, like, should I bitch about this on Twitter? Is this the thing I should bitch about on Twitter? And yeah, I'm going to bitch about it on Twitter. And I bitched about it on Twitter, and I'm glad I did, because someone replied really quickly to say, I had terrible trouble with mirrors. And I look around, there's a giant fucking mirror on my wall. Oh, shit. And this new position points more directly at the mirror than the previous one, so that's why it got worse. Yeah. I just took my mirror down, now it's perfect. They never say anything. I read every bit of setup instruction. They never mention that mirrors fuck it up.
That's like your life hack. You're offering to the world, or this other person's offering to the world.
When it wasn't working, I really wanted to know, how does it work? What is it doing? Because if you tell me, I can figure out what might be going wrong. And the thing, I thought the 2 sensors I thought they were sensors. I thought they were like cameras, and they're watching for the controllers and the headset. They're not. They're firing lasers out. And it's the headset and the controllers that watch for things. Those are the sensors.
Yeah.
And so the little boxes just fire infrared beams, and they're kind of like, I guess, coded in some way that they know which ones are coming from where. And so if it's bouncing off a mirror, it has no fucking idea what's going on.
It's like, oh my God, you're in space!
But then the good news for people who are going to get one or have got one is that it's fucking great. Once you're actually in it, it's amazing.
What's the best thing you've played?
So the 2 best things are Budget Cuts and Longbow.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Budget Cuts is the stealth game, which we actually mentioned on this podcast before, just because it looks so awesome from the trailer, and none of us have played it. And I've now played it through, and yeah, it's absolutely amazing. You're in an office, patrolled by robots, and you've just got to I think you've got to find your job application and approve it. There's almost nothing about the fiction in it. This is a demo, and it's even called a premature demo. Because obviously they're working on this thing. They only started like a year ago, I think. And then VR actually came out, so they wanted something out there, quite understandably.
Is that what comes before early access? Premature access?
Yeah. But it's definitely a good thing for them to do, because, everyone who has a Vive is talking about it. And so, like, the thing with the Vive is that your hands are in the world and your head is in the world, and you can walk around a little bit, not very much in my case. And then you have to teleport to get further than a meter away from, the center of your space. And Budget Cuts does that by you actually fire out like a little ball that bounces around the world, and their intent is that they don't want anyone to get motion sick playing this at all, because basically most motion sickness comes from moving the player's view without them moving their head. And so, but they also didn't like the sort of instant teleport thing. So when you fire out this ball, the hand that fired it, both your hands can be used for any tool. And so you pick up like a tool select menu. And the way it does it is really, I didn't understand it at first, but once you understand it, it's great. Is you press the button and then like images of all the weapons you can select appear in front of you, just in front of your hand, and they stay where they are. So if you move your hand forwards, the way you sort of pick one up is just to move your hand into the position it would be if it was holding it, and then it becomes real, all the others disappear, which is awesome. So you do that with the translocator, you fire a little ball, and then that hand becomes, you're holding a portal, and that portal is showing you what you'd be seeing if you were standing where the translocator is. So it's like, it's like Blink, but you can see where you're going to go before you do, and you're completely invisible. Like the ball that you fire is totally invisible. So the fact that you move this portal around and you see there's a robot staring right at you, it can't see you at all because you're not really there yet. And then you only press the trigger if you want to teleport there, and if you don't, you just fire another ball, and you can fire them on top of things and under things and around corners and stuff, and through vents. So it's the best version of teleporting that's out there. and then like just the fact that it has the same thing that I'd had with like Job Simulator, where that's the demo I played of that. You just in a kitchen, you just got to make some meals, and what you're doing is not interesting really in itself, but the fact that you're really in this world and you can pick up frying pans and throw them at people and juggle tomatoes and throw knives at stuff is awesome. It's that, but in an office block, and it's a stealth game, and you start off like near a windowsill, and so you're knocking off the plant, you're having all that fun. But then you realize that there's actually a game around that as well, and the main weapon in it is throwing knives, which are just physics objects. There's no special mechanic for it. It's just this is a throwing knife, and you throw it, and if it hits something, then it springs an oil leak and collapses to the ground, which is amazing. And everything can be thrown to distract people. And you also, because it's VR, sort of like immersed in a way that is just completely immediate and sort of can't be ignored. The same way that lots of people have this VR experience where if you do a demo where you're on a ledge and your play space actually lets you walk off the ledge, it's really hard to physically do it because you can't convince yourself that it's not real. And you get like immediate vertigo. So that level of sort of believing you're there, this world is not particularly interesting. It's just an office block. It's not very high detail or anything, but because you completely believe you're there, it has weird, sort of overtones of like the first time I played Half-Life 2. That thing of like being in a world, like you start on a train station in Half-Life 2, which is not the most exciting place in the world, but because you'd never seen a world to that fidelity before, and you could pick things up and throw cans at people and just mess around with it. Like the sense of just being in this place to a level that you've never experienced before. Budget Cuts has that, and it's only a tiny demo, so it's not quite like playing Half-Life 2 for the first time, but that was the moment that like VR became a thing for me, where it's like, oh, now I can kind of see like why people are so excited about this.
Yeah.
And the rest of the demo is like, you just keep discovering really cool things you can do. The main thing is it's a stealth game, and VR tracks your head. And so it kind of has an idea of what your body, you don't see your body ever, but, there's a sort of concept of where you physically are in a space, and that is controlled largely by your view. And so that means that when you teleport to, the edge of a doorway, and then you physically move your head to peer around a door, and then a robot starts to see you, and you have to quickly duck back, and just physically ducking under a desk so that a robot can't see you, and then peering out and trying to throw a knife before it looks around. And later on you get like a handheld crossbow, and you get in a situation where there's two robots, so figuring out how to like shoot one and throw a throwing knife at the other simultaneously. When you're doing that with your real hands and just doing the actual actions, it's so fucking cool. It just feels amazing. And I think in general, that's the awesome thing about Vive games, is that like each one is going to be a different skill set, and is going to be doing something physically with your hands is just totally different to learning to play a game. Like, Skyrim and Call of Duty and Deus Ex and Team Fortress 2 and Overwatch and everything all like plug into the skill set of move the mouse over the person's head, and that's a useful thing to do in all those games. And when you're good at that in one game, you're good at that in all of them. But when everything is controlled by your hands, and like the skill set of the game is just what you're doing with your hands, it's much more like learning a real life skill, even though it's not useful. Not at all useful. But it just like, there's so much expressiveness in that, and so much kind of room for finesse. And that's why the other thing that I've really been loving is Longbow, which is Valve's own demo of how you can do a bow in a game. Like, it's part of the lab, which is their series of little experiments that just all show different ways VR could go, and they don't sort of say if they're going to take any of those to a full game. But that is literally just, you're on a castle. It's actually, it plays with scale as well, because you see a model castle in front of you, and there's a little character marked on it, and then you sort of select that person, you zoom in and you become them, and then you're standing on the battlements. And then the little stick figures from the Portal demonstration vids are running down your battlements and trying to get to your gate. And it's like a tower defense type thing, but all you have is a bow and arrows. Your left hand is the bow, and your right hand always has an arrow in it. You don't have to draw them from a quiver or anything. It's just always there. And you just move the arrow to where the string of the bow is, then press the trigger and then pull back. And then when you release the trigger, that's when you fire the arrow. And all it really takes into account is the relative position of the two controllers. So you're just drawing a line between your two hands, basically. But as someone who recently sort of started to learn archery, I'm not going to bother learning archery anymore. Like, this is just way better. It's both remarkably similar to the real thing. Like, it feels like it's the same skill, only it's in an idealized world where nothing about your kind of muscles or like a whole bunch of other things to do with your physical body play a part. So it's so much easier to get good at it. Like in real archery, you get a little better on like one shot and then you get worse on the next one. You don't really know why. And it could be something to do with your posture and something to do with like how high your elbow went and how well you aligned your, finger to your eye and stuff. But this just removes so many variables that you go from like not being able to hit. You have to hit a stationary target to start. There's like a crowd of these little stick figures all jeering at you, before any of them actually invade. And you've just got to hit any of them to begin. And, I missed like 3 or 4 times. And there's loads of drop off in the arrows, more than is actually realistic.
Yeah.
But then you hit one. And then like about 12 minutes later, I was hitting like 4 moving targets in a row without pausing between shots, like just spinning around, seeing one and like in, an instant seeing, oh, he's coming down here, but he's going to turn left and he's going to turn left and probably move about, half a meter in the split second it takes my arrow to reach him. And I've also got to aim about 50 centimeters above his head and then it'll arc down and just hit him exactly in like his weak spot and do all that in a split second. And it feels so amazing to do
when
that.
you shoot them, you get a balloon that you can hit for extra points.
Yeah, I'm not good enough to do that yet.
I managed it once when I played that demo, but I didn't get anywhere near as good as like hitting several things in a row that you did. So, but the weirdest thing for me with that was that because of the way that the controllers vibrated when I was playing, the sort of the haptics of the technology, it felt so close to holding the ghost of a bow, like a really flimsy sort of weird psychic manifestation of the actual thing that you were doing. That I was like, that was the really interesting thing for me, was that it almost, like, I was so aware that I was playing a game. It kind of felt like doing one of those, the duck ranges at the fair or something, when they're sort of like, going along and you have to, like, take them out as they go in front of waves or whatever. But I never kind of like was immersed in that way, but it was so weird almost feeling this thing that I knew wasn't really there. That that was the takeaway from me for that particular thing. Yeah,
it's the sort of line between virtual and real is really strange once you're in, because one of the things is just, like, the sense of space is amazing, and I'd spent a lot of time thinking about how much space I have in my bedroom in setting this up, and then when I finally got in and it worked, they start you in a massive, like a thing that looks like a bedroom or like a lounge with some sofas and a desk and stuff, but all painted white. But also outside of that, there are no walls and it just goes on and on to this huge hallway. So you have this huge sense of space. And not that time, but the next time I went into it, just like taking a break from something else, I decided to go back into VR and do some stuff. And I can't remember what thing I was playing, but it was something that starts in a big open space. And, just the first thing I instinctively did was stretch out my arms and just kind of like bask in how much room there was and how much space there was. And I knew I was standing in my room and there's only 2 meters around me, but all your sensory systems just completely believe that you're out in this place. And it's just like going for a nice walk or, stretching your legs.
If they've released the Secret Shop demo, it's worth checking that out, because
I played that at Valve, I think, but I haven't played it since.
Just does some really interesting things with scale. Like, I was really excited when I played that, because that was my first experience with the Vive, and it was like, oh, holy shit, like, just sort of the ability to sort of like be big and then small in this room and sort of explore these weird objects and stuff. That was so cool. But like, the thing that I've played on VR that I could see myself spending more time with than just, like a kind of mood piece or a set piece or a demo has actually been the Climb, which is a Rift exclusive, I think.
That's the Crytek thing.
Yeah, it's you're just pretending to climb, like it's like rock climbing basically, and you sort of put out your hands and you do your hand holds and you scale these things, and there's like timed elements, or you can go for the more difficult grips to get a higher score.
And is that,
if you want to do that as well?
Is that Oculus's hand controller thingies?
Well, I played it on a controller, I think, but like they're going to do it for the hand controller.
So how do you control your hands?
So it's to do with the trigger buttons, and you use the bumpers to re-chalk your hands to to be able to grip for longer and stuff like that. But that's the first time I've felt like I could see myself playing it for longer. Like, I don't know if I would, because I don't know how I would feel after, half an hour or whatever. But it reminded me a lot more strongly of things like Wii Sports Resort, where I would just spend ages like trying to best a high score, or, all of that kind of thing. So that was interesting. But yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be, I don't really see it being a thing where you sort of just strap on the mask and play for like 8 hours in one thing. It feels much more like something you dip into.
Yeah.
And that sort of analogy of it's like going for a walk is sort of the closest thing I can say to how I think it will fit into my life once it becomes more developed. I don't think it's not going to replace normal gaming, certainly. It's going to be much more like a kind of break from other things.
I can see myself being more interested in art projects and things that use it, or experimental kind of ideas that plug into it. But yeah.
What else have you been playing, Pip?
Ooh, well, over the bank holiday weekend, I sunk 18 hours into Subnautica. Sunk is quite the... but yeah, so it's an under-the-sea alien survival game, or at least the landscape is alien and the fish and things that you encounter are alien. It's not a kind of Predator-style survival nightmare. And what I've really enjoyed about it is that there's one of the modes lets you switch off the need to deal with hunger and thirst, which is the thing that I hate playing against in survival games. And so you can still get hurt and you can still run out of oxygen if you're diving for too long, but you don't have to deal with constantly topping up food reserves or, distilled water or whatever. And I've just been having an amazing time pottering. There's not really any other way to describe what I've been doing. It's just pottering under the sea and checking out all of the wildlife and the little corals and little plants and things, and collecting them and turning them into other resources that you can then craft with, but sort of not feeling any pressure to do any of that, which is nice. It's, and it doesn't feel like busy work. It's because I've got my little projects to work on. So I found a kelp forest and what I did was I laid some foundations, which you do with, so I worked up enough technology and enough bits and pieces that I could build this little habitat builder, and that lets you build directly onto the landscape, because otherwise you're just in the pod where you landed in the sea. And I set up a few foundation platforms which help with the integrity of your base that you're about to build. And then I built just like a single room base with, and added some glass windows just so that I could stand inside for as long as I liked and look out at the forest.
All right.
And the way that it simulates, light changes and the movement of things underwater is just really lovely. And it's just such a nice environment to be in. It's not the kind of washed out, muddy, post-apocalyptic thing that you maybe have seen in a lot of other games. It's just this beautiful, bright, but not overbearing atmosphere, and it's, the sounds are, soothing, I find, and it's just this really lovely thing. And I've accidentally amassed more than 2,000 screenshots.
Wow.
Which I really need to do something about. Yeah.
That is also VR, right?
It can be.
Oculus only or something?
I am not sure, actually, because it wasn't relevant to my lifestyle, I guess. But, I can see it working really well in that, and I'm assuming that's why you always have the the central, cursor thing on screen, because I imagine you would get massively disoriented otherwise.
Yeah.
Like, I think that can really help with if you get motion sickness in games and things.
Yeah.
But I also yesterday discovered the free cam, and so you just put it in debug mode and then, disable you enable the console, and then I just sort of typed in free cam and then just went out and explored everything.
Right, so
it doesn't take away the scuba mask sort of around the edges, like the
camera
framing
also has
of
a mask.
that. Yeah, but it gets rid of all of the other sort of bits and pieces on your UI, and also it means that fish don't attack you because you're not really there. So I could actually get up close with some of the things, like there's these weird jellyfish-like growths from the ceiling of some of the caves, and they, like, when I tried to look at them when I was playing in game as an actual sort of as my diver character, it killed me. It stung me, and usually when something happens in the game that hurts you, it hurts you and then you can try and run away, basically. But I left and it just kept, like, ticking my health down, like it was just stinging and stinging and stinging. So I think I was just poisoned, and then I died, and what happens then is you spawn back at the life pod or your base or wherever it was that you either last saved or you last sort of your inventory cached. But that was really cool. But I'm so sort of exercising willpower in not using the free cam too much, because I could just use that to find all of the things that I haven't seen yet and just sort of properly go sightseeing. But I found the opening to a cave of just things that I haven't seen yet, and I saw them just like on the edge of my it took so much to just turn the hell back and just not go in and faff.
And then are you going to go back there and with real with your real fake body?
Yeah, with my real fake diver body. Oh, the weird thing is when you, like, I put it in free cam and then turned round and looked at myself, I don't have a head. I'm just like this body with just like a stump. I guess. But yeah, but Chris, isn't it lovely? Like, you've sort of peered over my shoulder at my weird...
It is lovely. It's also really nice because it's like... It's definitely a different trajectory for a survival game, particularly, as you say, allowing you to switch off the sort of the bullshit busy work mechanics, because it's a version of the survival game where, as far as I can tell for you, it's just been about, like, delight and exploring something.
Yeah.
And, like, obviously you are improving your circumstances and getting more resources and building stuff, but...
I'm currently working on a submarine.
Exactly. But, like... It's all positive. It's not like I have to do this in order to not die. It's like I have to do this if I want to see more cool fish.
Yeah.
Which is, as far as I can tell, the way you get you to do anything.
I think because it's in early access at the moment and they're obviously still working on it. But I think there's supposed to be more of a story, or at least I get the impression that that's where they're going with it. Because, you'll sometimes get these communications messages into your communications relay that, are, I guess, from other people that maybe survived the landing, but in the version as it currently exists, I haven't encountered any of that, and I don't think anybody else has, so I don't know whether it would just be sort of there as echoes of other people that you never meet, or is there as a statement of intent. I haven't looked it up because I deliberately don't sometimes.
It's quite a cool premise of landing on an alien world and it's just all water. Like, shit.
Yeah.
We're not well adapted for this.
So yeah, but that's been really cool, and there's like these weird like sharks that...
I've seen like the sort of 3-horned shark or whatever it is, the weird red thing. I think it's in like the official trailer. It looks fucking terrifying.
Yeah, there's these... Oh, one thing that's really lovely, and I actually sort of like... I think I clapped when I saw it because I do things like that, but there's these weird like long creatures that will come and bite you if you get too close, and they tend to patrol the kelp forest, so I've seen quite a lot of them. And you can sort of slash at them with your survival knife to make them leave you alone. It doesn't seem to kill them. I don't think you can. But Something that they do is they sometimes scoop up some of the scrap metal that's come off the ship and that you can salvage for titanium. But they sometimes just scoop it up in their mouths and play with it and like shake it around a bit or like just drop it somewhere else. And I just really loved that they seem to have coded in a play behaviour for some of these fish. That was really cool. And there's these other sort of, I think they're sand sharks or something. And they'll just like happily waggle their way through a layer of sand. Like you'll just sort of see suddenly like a little disturbance on the ocean floor. And it's like, it's this thing that's just kicking up a load of sand as it waggles its way along. It's just really cute. So, and they will bite the hell out of you, but you know, it's adorable.
More cool fish.
But I hear that you two have been playing something else.
No fish in it.
That was a really non-specific segue.
While you were trying not to drown in the beautiful blue waters of an alien world, I was drowning a man in a toilet in Paris. I've been playing...
and playing Hitman.
Yeah. Hey! So we've both been playing Hitman.
Yeah, the new one has just come out, episode 2, Sapienza.
Which is a beautiful Italian.
This is actually made me realise that there's a sort of a better solution to the lack of a name for this game, which is it's just Hitman episodes, basically.
Yeah.
It's the one that's episodic. And it's really fucking good.
It is really fucking good. So I hadn't played it yet, and partly because I just, I hadn't heard like amazing things, like people hadn't been raving about it or anything. And I know that you were a bit more cautious about how you feel
after
about
Paris
it.
I was. After the fiasco in Paris.
After Paris. Yeah, well, we'll always have Paris, but like, but also because, full disclosure, like, never really got on with a Hitman game before. Like, sorry, I'm a bit stuffed up. Blood Money is a game that, like, a lot of people whose opinions I respect about things like this absolutely rate incredibly highly, but I've never, like, felt compelled to give it the time it needs to open up its secrets and actually reveal how complex and kind of, beautiful of its mechanisms are and all the freedom it allows you to do things. I always sort of found it a bit overwhelming, and it was predominantly a game about failing to do something that I couldn't have really anticipated that wouldn't work. So, you bump into a guard who then shoots you because you're in the wrong place or something. A lot of quick loading and trying to perfect this sequence of moves that will get you to your objective, like trial and error, but the levels are so open that you can trial and error in entirely the wrong direction and be trying to do something that's completely wrong.
Yeah.
And then you watch people play it who know it, and they make it look super easy. And
super inventive as well.
Yeah, easy and inventive and sort of carefree, but it's because they've...
This is never their first attempt.
This is hour 200, and all that stuff, like, none of that stuff makes Blood Money a bad game, but it certainly makes it an unwelcoming game. And so, on paper, I totally understand why all of the very, very hand-holdy things in New Hitman, like, a big achievements list that says, have you considered knocking this man off a balcony onto his wife? And all this stuff. Or like, you drowned him. Could you poison him? Could you poison his wife? Could you drown his wife?
Could you drown his wife in poison?
Yeah, exactly. And the little quest system that guides you to opportunities. Admittedly, I did turn that down. I didn't turn it off. There's like, on its maximum setting, you walk up and you'll see two NPCs having a conversation, and it'll literally pop a message saying, there's an opportunity happening right in front of you.
That system is really kind of at the core of like both why I didn't like Paris and why I do like the game now. Because I really like the new episode, it's way better in every way. And also I now like Paris a lot more. And it's because I play Paris with the opportunities off, because like as a Blood Money obsessive, the idea of just being told what to do was really offensive to me. I was like, what the fuck? I don't want to be told just how to kill the target. That's bullshit. So I turned it off. And, then it's so designed around those opportunities, and I didn't want them because I thought it was telling me how to kill the target. And actually one of them is, and, I think that's true on the Italy level as well. But lots of them are just telling you a way to get the target away from their bodyguard. And that's what most of them are. Is like, and that was the other thing I complained about Paris was that, unlike Blood Money, my target is just always accompanied by a guard. Like, I followed them on their 8-minute cycle around the whole level, and they just never went away from their bodyguard. And most of the time, there was also 2 other bodyguards in the room, and there's this one window where there's only one bodyguard, and I've apparently got a killer in that moment. And then, because I turned opportunities off, so I only found out about, like, the one it told me about up front, which didn't work because of a bug. And then all the others I never found out about because they're just not very intuitively presented. And playing with the opportunities off is just brutal. It's just like, this game is designed to work with the opportunities, and if you don't discover them naturally, and you turn off the guidance that tells you where they are, then you're just going to have a horrible, difficult time, and there's going to be lots of waiting and trial and error. And then I played Sapienza, which I still had opportunities off, and I actually recommend it for that one, because the opportunities are just everywhere and really well signposted. Like, you start in front of the mansion you got to infiltrate, and if you go to the left or to the right, both of those immediately run you into someone loudly telling you, like, here's how you get into the mansion.
God, I'm able to get into this mansion, but I've been temporarily delayed, and if anything was to happen to me or my uniform in the next 30 seconds, that person would have free reign of the place.
Exactly. Which is great, because, like, that's how I want it to work. That's kind of... Blood Money wasn't always great about that, but that was how you played it. It was you walk around the level till you see a way of doing it, and then you do it, and that was the pleasure of it, and that's why I turned opportunities off. I think for Paris you should have them on. I think it's way better if you have them on, because the opportunities are actually really cool, and they don't solve it for you. They just they give you a window to do something else. But then, yeah, Sapienza is much more like Blood Money, where kind of those things are more obvious. And then I get to appreciate how much it's come on since Blood Money, and how it's just like the complexity of Blood Money, but written on a much larger scale, and all those things, which I did mention that a bunch of the systems are way better in this, even when I wasn't really enjoying it. Like in Paris, like the things about how disguises work, and how, like, if you're dressed as a cop, the other cops will mostly be fine with you, but there will be a couple of cops who know what all the cops look like, and they'll be suspicious of you, and that's just clearly marked as to who's going to find you suspicious and who won't, and that's really clear. And then, yeah, there's just so many ways to take out the targets. And with Sapienza, I didn't use the opportunity system, but I did look at the challenges, which are the things you're rewarded for, and they just lay out a bunch of ways you can kill them. They don't tell you how to do it. They just say, like I say, poison the target, or shoot both targets with a sniper rifle within 10 seconds of each other, or things like that. And it just gives you, that's just the right amount of information. It's like your friend telling you, hey, did you know you can do this? And then you're like, don't tell me how, I'm going to find out.
Yeah.
I had, I've only been playing it for like a day now, or a night, and I really like it. And something that, it's sort of funny, because actually the disguise system, initially it feels quite binary, like a binary series of keys, right? Like there's overlap, so certain outfits will get you into certain areas that overlap with other outfits.
Yeah.
But it's almost like finding the right series of easily accessible uniforms. Sometimes you don't even have to knock people out. If you can find a dressing room or something like that, you can kind of get stuff without having to create any kind of disturbance. And it feels quite binary. But actually the stealth system's quite fluid in a way that could be that it's not working, or could be that it's actually working really
it's
well.
So fluid in the way it doesn't work.
So I'm going to give you an example from Sapienza where I completely fucked up doing one of the opportunities in a really obvious way, where I probably won't spoil it too much for people who are planning to play it, but essentially I had to make a chairlift to go up some stairs look like it was moving by itself. And I just did it the really obvious way, which is to walk up to the lift button and just start fucking with the lift button, which made everyone around me go like, what the fuck is that guy doing with the lift button? And then I was dressed as a manservant at the time, so I started briskly walking away from where I was, and then I got confronted by a guard who was like, who the fuck are you? And I sort of panicked, so I shot him in the head with my silenced pistol, and then like a maid saw the body and she panicked. But all of the different, like, NPCs have different reactions to, like, something's gone really wrong. So, like, obviously other guards come swarming in, so, like, I headshot 2 more of them, because I'm, still good at shooting people. Still dressed like a manservant. And I know that the target is now running to a safe room or something like that. And actually the bullshit vision is actually the one instance of bullshit X-ray vision where you see target through walls, where it's like, cool, just let me do this. Because it facilitates moments that wouldn't be possible if I couldn't just look to see which direction he was running. So I started like sprinting through the upper rooms of the house, and I'm running past serving staff who obviously don't know something's gone wrong yet. And maybe it's just that the AI doesn't quite overlap in the right way, but it feels like information has to kind of propagate from the area where something goes wrong. It does. Which, like you do find people who are looking, but unless they tell another character, they're not necessarily all looking. And so you bump into people who are just still gardening, because if they haven't heard the 2 silenced gunshots, why wouldn't they still be gardening?
Yeah.
There's also like a distinction between people who know what you look like and people who don't. So like when someone sees you and if you let them get away and they run for help, you'll hear them tell the guard like, "Oh, he's dressed like one of us," as a guard. And they'll I even heard one of them say he's using a shotgun. And also they say he's a bald guy and he's white and he's
a tattoo on the back of his head.
But I noticed after that, like, I was just testing like a sniping strategy earlier where I shot someone from a bell tower, and I did it at the worst possible moment. Like, I didn't realize this at the time. I did actually have all the information to know this, but I shot the target as she was walking past a cafe where 4 bodyguards were having coffee. And when someone gets shot, I think the guards all look in the direction that the shot came from, and even if they didn't hear it, like, they can kind of tell from the way the body falls or whatever. And it's sort of fair enough that all their scrutiny is on the spot that the shot came from. And you can avoid it if you hide immediately, but I just thought I was safe because I was so far away. I didn't bother with it. And so I shot this woman, and then like 6 guards all just ran immediately away from where she was and towards me. But I was watching them through the magic vision, and they have dots above their head to show that if these people see you, they will be suspicious of you. But 2 of them were orange, and the other ones were just normal. And through kind of experimentation, I've learned the orange people who know orange people are people who know exactly what you look like, and like they're the people who saw the shot. Basically, when the shot went off, they looked at me and saw me, and so if they ever see me again, they'll immediately recognize me. Whereas the other ones who were just suspicious, they knew something was going on, but they hadn't personally seen me, so I would be able to kind of like, walk past them and they go and I'd be able to get away with it if I was quick enough. But then they're like, the orange ones are the people who have the information. And the other ones can be alerted or not alerted, but they still don't necessarily know what you look like.
I had that in Paris when I subdued 2 guards in a room by distracting them into a bathroom by overflowing the taps in a bathroom. And so the first one came in, I subdued him, put him in a cupboard. And then the other one came in, presumably not knowing why the other one was still in there, fixing a different tap. It's not that clever. But I fucked up subduing him, so I actually had to like fist fight him. I didn't cause any more of a disturbance than that. But when he was unconscious in the cupboard, in magic vision, he was orange in the cupboard and the other one was grey in the cupboard. And of the 2 unconscious men, one of them had seen my face and the other one hadn't.
Right. I may be unconscious, but I know what you look like, you fucker.
It was interesting because then I was dressed like a guard and I went into the room, and the reason I picked that room is because I knew the target would come into it periodically, and it was now free of guards. And I was stood there dressed as a guard, and she came in and went, I think there's 1 fewer guard.
Yeah.
But that's actually true because I had added a guard. In being me, so I don't know if they got it, if it's that clever, but there was 1 fewer guard, even though there were technically 2 fewer guards. But it was just super cool.
I'm assuming it does know how to do that as just like a basic like maths thing. It was as in it knows that you're in a guard outfit.
If it's the room I'm thinking of, there's 1 guard who's just always in there. Yeah. And if you take him out, she always says, "Oh, there's 1 fewer guards here."
Oh, okay. So maybe that was it, because I took out the guard outside as well on the door. Yeah, that's where I killed that woman. I did manage to break it slightly, I think, on Paris, with the target who roams the ground floor. I think you spoke about this in the podcast before. You can poison him. Yeah. In a particular way. And I sort of stumbled across that by accident. I found the recipe for his favorite cocktail without necessarily knowing that he wanted it. So I set that whole thing up, made the cocktail, and left it there, and he never fucking drank it. So I followed him for ages on his laps through cutscenes and stuff that he was doing. Not cutscenes, but, little moments he has with the characters, like a TV interview and all this other stuff he does. And then, as he was coming away from a particular thing he does, I think due to like an NPC pathing thing, his bodyguard got like momentarily stuck. So they were walking slightly further apart than I think they were supposed to. And then they turned a corner, and it was a corner, so the long corridor, then a turn, the target goes down the corridor and turns around the corner, and the bodyguard is like lagging substantially behind him in a long corridor with no one else in it. So I immediately subdue the bodyguard, and then take his clothes, drag him into a bathroom and put him in a cupboard. And I'm dressed as the bodyguard. And if you're dressed as the bodyguard, the target will then recognize you immediately as not his real bodyguard. So I can't go anywhere near him. But I can at least follow him now, relatively unimpinged. And he the first thing he does is like weirdly turn around and run back. And I'm like, shit, he saw me. But he didn't. He runs back, picks up his bodyguard's gun, which I'd forgotten to pick up, takes it to another guard and goes, I found this. It ain't a toy.
Oh, wow. He gives it.
Hands it to the guard, who then goes to take it to a locker. But he didn't obviously recognize that it was his own bodyguard's gun that he dropped on the floor. And then I just followed him at a distance. And then when
this is Jarvis's custom assault rifle. Jarvis, no! Also, I've only just noticed Jarvis isn't here.
yeah, and so I'm following him around, and his bodyguard is like a bald guy in a suit, so I'm following him around the same distance.
There are a lot of bald people in these levels.
Yeah. So anyone watching would see this is completely normal because I'm just following him around. But eventually, when we were in the garden party area, he saw me and then got suspicious. And so I had to like vault over a little wall and just hide in the hedge garden. And he came and looked for me for a bit. I can't remember what he must have been thinking. Like, I saw a guy who looked like Jarvis, but it wasn't Jarvis, but he was wearing all of Jarvis's clothes. Anyway, where's Jarvis? Anyway, and then he went back to just patrolling and doing his thing. He had another conversation. I started noticing at the end of his conversation, sometimes he would talk to the bodyguard, even though the bodyguard was gone. So it's like, oh, come on. And I went, okay, off. And then eventually on like lap 3, he finally drank the cocktail, got sick, went to the loo and then drowned him in the toilet. Right. But it took fucking long enough.
Yeah, I had a problem with that exact opportunity where that was the one that it told me about before I turned off opportunities, and that was because it was poisoning the target. I was like, oh, this is going to tell me how to do it. But then eventually I did try and do it, and it just, that little like hotspot where you're supposed to be able to press Y to blend in as a waiter and mix the cocktail. I had the recipe and everything, but it just wouldn't let me do it. There was no hotspot there. And I looked up guides and I went back and forth and it just broke for me. And I've had that with a couple of, I think I had like one opportunity in Sapienza that didn't work like that. And also a couple where if the challenge involves shooting someone with a gun, it never seems to register for me. There's one to like shoot Viktor Novikov when he's on stage, and I've done it everywhere I can think of and it never unlocks the challenge. There's another one where you've got to introduce yourself to Dahlia and then shoot her with a silenced pistol, and it never unlocks for me. And that's usually I wouldn't really care about like achievements, but that is how progression works, is you have to get the achievements to get the points, and then the points get you the equipment. And another reason I didn't enjoy Paris. I think Paris is the worst introduction to this game. Sapienza is a great introduction.
Sapienza, according to like Game Journo Twitter or the Game Journo sphere in general, seems to be the one that has opened it up to a lot of people.
Yeah, it's way easier for one thing. Like as an episode 2 versus episode 1, it's bizarre to have like the much easier one second. And Paris, I think, is just a really hard Hitman level, unless I guess you follow the opportunities, which maybe makes it simpler. But totally forgot what I was saying.
Unlocks.
Oh yeah. So the reason that Sapienza kind of made me, also made Paris better for me was that I got to, I maxed out my mastery of Sapienza, which is what they call it, really quickly. And so I had everything you can unlock from that. And the unlock system is strange in that some of it's global and some of it's mission specific. So you unlock starting points for the mission and disguises and stuff for the mission. And you also unlock equipment, and that equipment can be used on any mission. And some of the equipment you unlock, even though it's global, is the same on the 2 missions, and some is not. So I finally unlocked a sniper rifle, which I didn't have, and then found it wasn't silenced, and was kind of annoyed about that. Still used it, because there's certain challenges you can only do with a sniper rifle. Used it for those, and then went back to Paris with all my new equipment, and I've got lethal poison now, so if I mix that cocktail, I can just kill him on the spot with it, which is another challenge that you get points for. And there's loads of just possibilities and things that I had no way of doing when I first played Paris, because I just didn't have the kit, and it wouldn't give me the kit. And now I've gone through all the Paris levels and levels of mastery and unlocked the kit from that, and now I do have a silent sniper rifle. So there's 2 different sniper rifles depending on which mission you unlocked it from. And I don't know, maybe all the kit I unlocked in Sapienza is stuff you can only unlock in Sapienza, but stuff like poison seemed pretty fundamental. In fact, yeah, it must be possible to unlock that.
Because that achievement existed anyway. So
yeah.
Or maybe they intended it.
It might be possible to do it in a different way. I don't know.
Feeding into one another thing.
Because some of the kit you unlock is marked as custom. And the inventory system is so weird. It takes up all the screen. It's this huge picture of the thing, and then it's got like 3 icons on some of them, and it doesn't claim what any of them are. Some of them are obvious, like it's got a sort of a shush icon, and that means it's silenced. But then one of them's like a crosshair with like brackets at the side, and another's a crosshair with brackets at the side and the top. No, what is that? There's no way to like mouse over them or get any extra information. And then just half of them are marked as custom. And you're like, well, custom how? What do you mean? Like the explosive rubber duck is custom. And yeah, it's bizarre.
Also, that game, just in praise of one of Hitman's other great successes. So we've mentioned through its dynamic NPC stuff, it genuinely has some good stealth game barks. Like,
Yep.
Stealth game barks are an important part of any stealth game. It's got good conversations between characters in the world that flesh out the world a bit and give you a sense of what's going on. Some of which are dynamic, some of which are, scripted to happen at a certain point. It's got interesting interactions between NPCs when they see something suspicious. It's not always the smoothest thing in the world. Like, oh
my god, you killed that guy! Or,
yeah.
Don't you realize you took another human life?
Yeah. It's a dead body! But, they are expressing something that's happening in the game system, which is what these systems are ultimately for, is to broadcast something to the player to say, like, I'm going to tell you what the NPC knows, basically.
Yeah.
And the general rule is, it's generally not funny when they're talking to each other, but its way of broadcasting the successful failure of your disguise and areas of security it has created a world of absurd people.
Yep.
Because, if you were, the reason you would choke out a waiter in a bathroom and take his clothes to infiltrate a high society party is because waiters or housekeepers or whatever are, especially in fiction like this, portrayed as kind of invisible, right? No one notices them moving through the party, therefore they have freedom of movement, which you do. However, obviously, that would mean no character ever commenting on you being there. And that would mean the game wouldn't be broadcasting any information to you about your disguise being successful. It wouldn't necessarily be clear to the player that they are successful because they're in the right disguise.
Yeah.
So instead, what they have is, and they have these huge crowds of NPCs, they have people randomly approve of what you're wearing. So you might, initially you start in the Paris level in a tux, and someone will go like, "Sharp tux guy," and like everyone's in a fucking tux. It's a black tie fashion gala, and then like, "Oh, bet you're a pretty sharp dresser, eh?" Like, and he's also wearing a tux in a party. But then that extends, and that maybe you could justify, but that extends to fucking everything. So you'll be walking through, and someone will go, "Hey, waiter, bet you're going to do some waiting tables because you're a waiter.
My
I
favourite
believe
one.
you're a waiter."
Everyone is just, Mr. Bodyguard!
Yeah.
Yes, that's what and they use
good.
that, like, fair play to them, they've obviously had to write, like, 17 different lines for every different character in the whole game, but a lot of them are of the form Mr. X. Oh, Mr. Ground Crew!
exactly.
Mr. Waiter! Mr. Bodyguard!
It's really weird when it's also, and it's also different if you're the same sort of person as them, but they're not the special type of person who can recognize that you're not really one of them. Because it'll be like, "Guess you're a stylist as well. I'm also a stylist. We have the same job.
I'll allow you in this area.
Yeah, I'm happy to see you here, but not over
do you
there."
know what they should have done? They should have done like when a dad is trying to take an interest in one of your university friends' like activities or something, and like fishes out the only thing they know about gardening or about like
It is
cooking
weirdly
or
like that.
butlering
Yeah,
or
that's not far off.
something.
Like, "Looking pretty sharp, Mr. High-ranking security guard from upstairs who's down here."
They do, like, they actually have some nice, incidental conversations that also tell you about disguises and what they do and don't do, because the stage crew on the Paris level, they're on, like, the second floor, and all the high security stuff on the third floor, and I heard one of them say to the other, "Hey, why aren't we allowed up there?" And so that just tells you, if you take that guy's disguise, it won't get you upstairs, which is kind of neat.
But there is that sort of thing of like,
Do you know what they need? They just need a press lanyard.
I think those guys have one, actually. Stage crew.
but yeah, and I think I got like the highest possible like security guard uniform in Paris, and someone, I think on the ground floor, as I was escaping after having killed both targets and destroyed the camera footage, did say something like, "Wow, you're a pretty good security guard. Bet you could go pretty much anywhere in this building."
Fucking hell. That's a bit on the nose.
It's a world of people who know, who are more excited than anything else about your job.
They're just really interested in the semiotics of clothes, Chris.
Well, it is a fashion show. This is the other thing. It's like weirdly that it's the world's most literal fashion show where it's like, it's not just about what the models on stage are wearing, it's about what everyone's wearing. It's like, wow, you're a gardener. That's the clothes you wear as a gardener. That must mean gardener. Wearing a gardener. That makes sense.
They do a nice.
It's a commentary on the. Yeah.
One of the things they also use that system for is, which is a legitimately useful thing. There are often like guards at the entrance to an area who will give you a heads up as to whether or not you can go past them. So as you approach, they'll just say, "Hey, stage crew, not allowed to back here." Or, Mr. Kruger, of course, come in. And there's a little fake out on one of them. So I don't know if this happens with a bunch of other disguises, but, I was dressed as the Sheikh, and who is allowed basically everywhere. He's like, incredibly, high ranking. Everyone is fine with him. And I was just running through like the second floor, which is even the highest security area. And one of the bodyguards said, "Hey, who are you?" "Oh, no, wait, sorry, it's fine."
Is there anything that like, I know this would possibly just destroy the game from that point of view, but can you just get into somewhere by being confident enough?
No, you're kind of,
you know what I mean?
default
like
to being confident all the time. Like
Yeah.
everywhere you walk, you kind of walk like you
you
belong
can't
there.
just strut in and just be like, "Don't you know who I am?"
I mean, to some extent, you can kind of do it because when people are suspicious of you, there's a bit of leeway, so they don't immediately start firing. They just look at you and then they're like, they have sort of 3 or 4 tiers of suspicion. So there's one where they're just looking at you and you get this kind of like wind sound. It goes whoosh when someone's getting more and more suspicious. And until it hits
That's
a certain...
not a gardener.
It's actually them hissing through their teeth. Shh, not a gardener, not a gardener. He's not a gardener.
I thought he was a gardener. I was excited. I'm angry now. Get the gun.
No, but they have like, suspicious is the name for one of the states, and that means they will try and find out who you are. They'll walk over to you and say, "Hey, who are you? You there?"
Okay.
But that you can still, if you just get away, they won't do anything about it.
Yeah.
But then if they, continue to be suspicious of you and you don't get away, they'll go into like arresting mode.
Okay.
And that means that now you running away is a thing that they'll actually they'll shoot you for, or even if you do get away and they don't manage to shoot you, now they'll go and tell other people about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, those first 2 levels of suspicion are just fine. You can just get away with it. So.
I really like the idea that they have this perfect recall if they saw you one time as well. Like, there's no sort of witness, unreliability or anything added in. It's like, could definitely pull him out of a lineup any day of the week.
He does have a barcode on the back of his head.
Well, I suppose. Yeah.
For people who did see you, that's the case. And then for people who didn't, it's remarkably easy to get away with it. Like, there's loads of sophisticated stuff going on behind the scenes, I think, because there's stuff like if you just set off an explosive right next to the target or something and you're just standing right there, if you just stand there, they will find you out. They'll be looking at you and they'll realize that you're not supposed to be there, and they sort of go into heightened suspicion. But if you just sort of run 10 meters away and then continue to stand around, it's only like in that area at that time, they're super suspicious. And then after that, they still are alert because, guys died and they're looking for someone. But if they don't have any reason to suspect your disguise, then you can just walk right up to them and hit them in the back of the head with a fire extinguisher.
Throw a hammer at them.
I haven't really played it at all. I've got it on my PC waiting for when I'm done with a whole bunch of things that I'm doing at the moment. But, the thing that attracted me in, and I don't really know how to say it without spoilers, but you've seen the video, Chris, but, it was Gav and Rory doing something absolutely reprehensible to a person in a graveyard, I believe.
Yeah, who puts a wood chipper next to a grave?
Yeah, there's an achievement for that.
But yeah, and that was kind of, I'm ashamed to say
Actually,
what kind of sold it to me.
It's perfectly humane because they literally won't let you put the body in there unless they're dead. If it's unconscious, it won't let you do it. I don't know why.
Oh, really?
Yeah, literally says cannot do it unconscious.
He's a murderer with standards.
Yeah. I would have said this is the target, so I'm trying to assassinate him by putting him in there, and it says, "Oh, he's unconscious." I'm like, yeah, I know, that's why I'm putting him in a fucking wood chipper.
I found myself in a really awkward situation in Sapienza where I did both of the left and right things. So, which basically ended up with me trying to carry flowers in, dressed like a chef.
Sending out mixed signals there, Chris. You're not conforming to a stereotype
As opposed
at all.
to trying to work in the kitchen dressed like a flower delivery man.
Funnily enough, I just heard on Idle Thumbs that if you pick up the flowers and then go to the chef's apartment and knock on his door, when you answer the door, he has a special line for like, oh, I don't think these are for me.
Oh, he's got low self-esteem.
Well, he is. Actually, there's lots of interesting things about that guy. I was annoyed because I broke into his apartment and on his computer he's playing Hitman. He's playing Hitman Sniper Challenge, and I was like, oh, this is kind of bullshit. Like, it's because there's 47 is on his screen. Like, it's like, that's me. That's kind of breaks the whole illusion. But apparently, the reason for that is that guy and his whole apartment is modelled after the guy who got the highest score in the Hitman Sniper Challenge.
Oh, really?
Like, that was the prize for winning that, was you get to be in
That's pretty cool, actually.
Oh.
And they obviously think he's not someone who would get flowers. Or maybe he thinks that.
I don't think Chris would get flowers because he keeps hiding naked men in cupboards.
I do that, yeah. But that's what 47 does. He strangles you, he takes your pants, he hides you in a cupboard. Only if he's interested in the silent assassin rating.
Yeah.
So basically, the only way to escape being undressed in a cupboard is to not wear a uniform specific to a job.
I was
or
thinking
a rank.
this. I was thinking that Agent 47,
yeah.
if he wanted to assassinate me at work, he'd be fucked. Because no one wears a uniform of any kind. And a man showing up in a suit who is completely bald, with a barcode on the back of his head, like, there's no way he wouldn't stand out. Because our sales department is in London.
But he
would
could,
blend in
just
as like
steal
a
someone's
hitman
pass, right? He could just steal someone's pass and
Yeah,
come
but
over to your desk and doff you up.
He could get into the building and no one would challenge him because
Or like wait till
everyone's
you went out for
frightened.
lunch.
Yeah, what?
He could just corner you in an alley.
Bant shot
Because of-
down.
Because of
I'm just
Hitman.
thinking of all the different ways that you could be assassinated.
I think about this a lot. Every time I make a cup of tea and I walk
How
away
to
from
kill
it.
Chris.
Yeah, how can I kill Chris? Every time I make a drink and I walk away from it, like to do something before I come back, I think, well, opportunity to poison me.
Yeah. Yeah, Tom. Someone could like reach through your window and put a little bit of hemlock in there.
In a public cafe and stuff,
Yeah.
you need to go to the bathroom, you leave your drink there. Can't take
Well,
your drink
that's
to the
why,
bathroom.
like, this is, seriously, in sixth form at a girls' school, you have lessons about this. Like, seriously, you do. But, yeah, like, I'm just thinking, if anybody assassinated me today, I don't know where they would get into. I mean, you know, they could just go to the co-op, I guess. But, I mean, not do anything interesting. They could buy some food. But they could do
Don't
that
have
in their
unique
own
access.
outfit as well.
They could probably get into some esports tournaments.
That's true. Well, no, because you'd need the lanyard. Although they could go through my
could steal
collection
your
of
lanyard.
lanyards.
But then they wouldn't really need to kill you, they could just take the lanyard because it
That's
doesn't have like a
true.
photo, right?
They could just like knock on my door and threaten me, and I'd probably hand them.
That's what I did to the guy who won the
Don't
Hitman Sniper
knock
Challenge.
on the door and threaten me.
They just picked the lock of his house, went in, stole all of his clothes and left before he noticed.
That guy's not going to work anyway, from what you're saying.
They could take my frog onesie, but then I don't know what that would do either. They could just go hang out in a pond, but then they'd look really weird because they'd be wearing a frog costume, and the rest of the things would just be
And all the
frogs.
frogs would be like, hey, Mr. Frog, look at you!
Hey, look at this guy! What a frog!
Check
Go
out
to
this
frog,
frog
get
on
up,
the
eh?
You're allowed on this lily pad, man.
I really want to see Agent 47 try and infiltrate a lily pad.
Oh my god, this heron's dead! Who could have done it in the fucking 6'2" frog walking off? He's choked a heron. Oh, that's the game I'll play.
You could go for real sort of like overdoing it, just poison the entire pond, and then just, you know, that'd be a bit much. Can you, like, are there options that just destroy the whole thing? Like,
You can kill a lot of
just,
people.
You can
like, nuke it
bring
from
down the
orbit
lighting
kind of
rig
thing.
in the fashion show, which kills everyone on stage.
Huh.
You can like throw a bomb into a crowd. I don't know what it does. I haven't done that, but I have. There's this opportunity to sort of bomb someone during the interview, and that because it's the target being interviewed by a reporter. Obviously, like during the interview, it killed them both, and I killed someone for the weirdest reason. It was because that I set that up, and I was pretty prepared. Like, oh, okay, I'm probably going to kill the interviewer as well, which means you don't get the rating for only killing targets. But like right before the interview starts, before it's kind of in position for you to do this, she says, "Oh, I just need to go and like check something on my phone." And to do that, she has to walk like 10 meters away. So it's like a really contrived way to make sure you can use the explosive to only kill the target. And I was
What
so
about the cameraman?
offended. Sorry?
What about the cameraman?
It was just, she's like a blogger, and so she has her own camera, and
okay.
it's on the floor, and she hasn't picked it up yet. And then she says, suddenly, even though she's fought really hard for the interview, she walks away for for a while to give you this chance to blow it up.
Disrespectful.
And I was so offended that the game developers had so contrived this to make sure I had the opportunity to do that I refused to blow him up on his own. I was like, no, I'm waiting for her to come back. Doesn't make any sense that she would suddenly walk away in the middle.
Said I could blow up a blogger, blowing up a blogger.
I don't want to kill her, but it doesn't make any sense that I would be able to not kill her, so I'm going to kill her.
Tom the humanitarian.
It's a good game. It's a surprisingly good game. And good for them for turning the series around, so absolutely.
Yeah,
that's an absolution. Yeah. I thought I was going to have to point that out. But no, you received the band naturally. Without having to force it.
It still has... It's going to be interesting to see how it works out, because this is DLC for a single app on Steam, rather than new apps each time. And so it still has mixed reviews on Steam, the bad thing, where it comes up in orange, or to indicate that, it's controversial.
Like hit, miss, or maybe, really, isn't it?
I think it's to do with it being online. When it launched, you could, even now it's online and offline modes, and saves are not compatible between them, which sucks. And when it launched, if you played in online and then you got disconnected, it kicked you out of your game. You couldn't carry on playing. And now, I think with episode 2, you can carry on playing when it kicks you out, and I guess just maybe achievements don't unlock or something. But it's kind of fair enough, really. That thing is bullshit. And so if people are going to hate on it for that, it's sort of, maybe they'll learn not to do it. Shall we do questions?
Yes.
Thanks, Pip.
Sorry, I thought you might want to do something in unison. You were looking at me in a meaningful way, but then I thought maybe you were just waiting to cough.
No, I was trying to...
I've spoiled the illusion.
I decided to awkwardly put you on the spot by not saying anything.
Oh. Well, yes, let's do questions.
Okay,
One day we'll just say no and walk out the room.
Yeah, I was toying with that last week. I still haven't made good on it.
Well, actually, because we spoke about games for quite so long, almost 2 hours,
Whoops.
We're going to do a truncated selection of questions this week. Just in the name of...
Expediency.
Expedience, and not podding all the way clear into Wednesday.
Newsday Tuesday has to stay Tuesday.
Not
so you can receive it on Friday.
Exactly. There's no word for Wednesday. Forbidden Wednesday. Well, we cannot pod.
Wednesday,
except sometimes when we do. Wednesday, end of days. That's what it stands for.
We should do questions, because this isn't making questions happen.
It's getting closer to Wednesday, if anything.
Shit, it really is. Very quick one from Alex. Who writes about last week's discussion of representations of blindness in games, where we skewered the notion that blind people perceive the world like dolphins, as a kind of sonar projection of the world around them.
I think we went with bats.
Bats or dolphins. He actually says, he says regarding human echolocation, I thought it sounded like a hoax too, but it's actually a thing, and links to the Wikipedia page for human echolocation.
I think, and I was going to mention this last week, but I didn't because I got sidetracked by any number of things. But I think there's This American Life where they talk to a guy who uses that basic sort of, I think he does clicking and sort of uses that sort of echolocation and can do things like ride a bike successfully, without crashing into things, which is more than I can do sometimes. And yeah, that sounded really interesting, and I think I meant to mention it and then didn't. But yes, I will try and fish out the episode so that you can put it in the show notes if it turns out to be real.
Fair point, well made. By both of you. Some humans can do that.
Yeah, it's pretty
Not all
cool.
of them, though. I think I stand by our objection to it as the kind of de facto way of representing how blind people perceive the world around them.
That seems legit. Yeah.
But nonetheless, some people, also bats. But not Batman. He can't do that.
You don't play enough as bats in video games.
No. Common enemy.
In Batman, you can throw a remote control batarang and then steer that with your controller, and that's a bit like being a bat. You're a bat-shaped thing and you're steering it.
So, an interesting bat fact, possibly, if it turns out to be true and not just me making things up that
Interesting
I vaguely remember.
if true.
Was that I found a bat in the road in Oxford, just like crawling around in the gutter. Like, it wasn't like doing anything untoward, it was just that was where
Did
it
it
happened
have
to be.
wings?
Yes.
Was it a rat?
No, it was a bat. And because I think there's this thing where bats need to fall off something to be able to fly. Like, they can't take off because they can't do like a little run up or anything. So I had to like dangle my scarf so that it could kind of hook onto the scarf. Oh. And then I put it over like the side of a wall so that like, because there was a dip on the other side of the wall, so it could like drop and
please tell me it
fly off. Well, it was quite dark, and I don't know whether, but it ended up sort of on the other side of this wall somehow, and I assume it flew off, but I was kind of like trying to work out how you dislodge a bat from a scarf if it doesn't want to leave the scarf, and what I would then need to do, and how my life would then progress, and whether I would just live with a bat for the rest of my life. Anyway, and so I phoned the I found a number that I could phone for bats, and they told me that they would like
scrawled in a phone booth.
They said that they would like
bats now, hot bats now. Call
any kind of bat you want. Big bat, little bat, cardboard box.
Bat. But they marked it
big old
down
box of bats,
and
two
said
bats.
that they would like check in on the bat.
You just.
But no,
should they confirm or deny they need to fall off something to fly?
I've dangled it off something and dropped it.
That was, I googled
right?
it and it seemed like it was on a legit bat site, but I don't know. Like, anyway,
legit bat sites now. Yeah.
There was
batdanglers.com.
There ended up I got my scarf back and there wasn't a bat on it, so I assumed that the bat was either okay or that someone checked in on the bat afterwards because of them being like protected and stuff, but I didn't want to. Anyway,
what
that
you should have
story
done.
went on for quite a while. But the other thing I know about echolocation, I think, is that I think it's beluga whales have like this special organ inside their head called a melon. And
sure, it's not just slang.
No, it's legit called a melon. We met a beluga whale in Atlanta.
Atlanta, yes. I've met him before, but that's just because I've been to that aquarium before. But yeah, and they use the melon to like somehow feed back the echolocation. I'm slightly unclear on how that works.
Echo melon.
Yeah, they've got an echo melon.
Wow.
Stop twisting my echo melons, man.
Those beluga whales were being a complete dick to a harbour seal that lived with them. And they're really sweet and intelligent and seemed very happy.
One of them was playing with a box.
One of them playing with a box. And the other one was just swimming around, kind of like having, by all accounts, a great time. But there's a harbour seal in its tank with them. It obviously lived there, like a guinea pig, sometimes lives at rabbits or something like that. But the beluga whale would like swoop towards it, open its mouth, like, I'm gonna get you, and then swim off again. And the harbour seal would always like flap away, like, oh fuck, Jeremy, not again. Like, and it was this thing of like, from the beluga whale's perspective, it probably thinks it's just like teasing him, toying with him, but it's this massive fucking white whale, like diving towards him, going like, I'm gonna fucking kill you this time, no!
Do you think that the harbour seal was Ahab in this story? But anyway, also, the one of those beluga whales was blowing little air rings. Like, it was actually making little...
Oh yeah, it was blowing bubbles and, like, actually blowing rings and swimming through them.
But, like, yeah, cool. like smoke rings, but for under the sea non-smokers.
I don't know how we got here from blind people don't have echolocation, but,
Melons.
Melons
and bats.
Melons, bats and mangoes. Incidentally, though, Atlanta, Georgia Aquarium.
It's
legit
amazing.
The best aquarium ever. Aquarium.
L'aquarium.
The best.
Oh, l'aquarium.
The best licoricarium I've ever been to. It was genuinely great. Really, really good.
It's pretty.
Met a penguin.
4 whale sharks.
4 whale
in
sharks.
its massive, massive Pacific tank. Oh, it's so good.
It's very good. Big rays.
Amazing. All good.
Amazing rays.
And lots of sea dragons. They were great. A really fun octopus if he's around. Yeah. Good.
Does it have a free cam mode?
I wish.
Ian writes.
Hi, Ian.
Dear Captain Crowbar, Civil Pip War.
Bant received, Ian.
I know with Graham away, none of you guys are particularly into sports, except of the E variety, but you probably noticed Leicester City Football Club won the Premier League this week. I actually hadn't.
They did. It was 5,000 to 1.
That's what Ian goes on to
August,
say.
I believe. The best thing was that they called the celebration afterwards the Leicester Fiesta. That was my favourite thing. Sorry.
After that, they had the Leicester Siesta.
And then they all built a Leicester Nester. It was the Leicester Bester.
Ian has
Ian
words.
goes on to write, yes, defeating odds of 5,000 to 1. My question is, what are the greatest odds you have overcome in a game? And secondly, partially to justify the pun above, what is your greatest act of heroism? Thanks for podding, everybody. Ian. Presumably of Leicester.
This does not count as overcoming the odds, but small victory in the face of absurd odds. I once played against Fatal Wanty, as in fatality with the one, who is
Maybe we were talking about Fatal Onesies earlier.
He's a pro gamer. I think it was Quake 3 that he was, good at. Possibly the best
so
at.
You met a famous.
And there was some, promo event at which, he was just going to kill all the journalists, and I was one of the journalists. And,
You look like a gamer, you bellowed at him as he walked in his gamer disguise.
Yep. You're allowed in here. But I got 5 kills against him, and it was first to 25 or something, and I got a 5, and it was I killed him sometimes. I thought I killed him no times. But actually, the other one that sprung to mind was a game of Supreme Commander where playing on Seaton's Clutch, which is 2 big land masses connected by one long, thin land bridge, and I had misunderestimated the AI in the American parlance. And I don't know how I fucked it up, but it was I think I was playing against 7 AIs, and then I kill all the ones that are on my side of the map, and then the 4 on the other side of the map generally sorted out amongst themselves, and then one emerges as dominant. And that happened really early on their side. And so the red player, I think it was, just took over all the other bases and killed them all, and just dominated that side of the map. And then the main difference between AI and humans is that the AI can be bothered to go after every little mass extractor. The maps are huge. This is 80 kilometers by 80 kilometers, and there's just hundreds of little mass extractors, and they're all really important technically, but it's just a pain in the ass to go and place a building on each one and then upgrade it at the right times and stuff. And so if the AI gets a lot of territory, they fucking skyrocket. And by the time I was ready, by the time I conquered my half the land, there was just, the whole land bridge was just thick with units just pouring down towards me. And it was just fuck, I've got some good stuff, but I'm just never gonna, this is just a swarm that's never gonna stop pouring out of there. And I had some naval bases and little bits of water to the either side of the land bridge, and I had built a nuclear submarine, which I was planning to obviously use to destroy his base, but he had a million nuke defenses. It was never going to work. But nuclear submarines can also just fire tactical missiles, which are just certainly not short range. They're very long range, but they not quite as long range as a nuke. And they have no splash damage. They just hit one specific target and they do a bunch of damage to it. And so they're useless against units, because they take, literally 45 seconds to reach their destination. So you're never going to hit anything that's moving. But I was just looking at this. I was about to quit the game. I was just thinking this is completely fucked. And then I realized, I was just looking at their bases, and they have a bunch, 2 on the coast and then some other ones further inland. And I realized that with the combined ranges of all the tactical missiles of my nuclear subs on both sides, every power generator they had was in range of me. And I couldn't get to their mass extractors, which was all over the land, because they're the things you go out and actually capture. But everything that could produce any power at all, I could hit, technically. And if I hit it all, their whole base just shuts down. They can't do anything with that power. All their shields go down. They can't produce anything. And basically I kept building nuclear subs and let my whole land base get smashed, to the point where I just about had enough resources to do this. And then, eventually after 20 minutes or something, it worked. I'd taken out every single power generator they had, and every time they tried to build one, they built it in the same spot, so I could just destroy it again. And so that just everything just shut down, and they couldn't produce anything else. So I had this huge empire that they'd built up that basically couldn't be reinforced, and I could just chip away at it and ultimately destroy it. It was awesome. It's the way I wish every strategy game worked out like that, where you realize, like, oh, fuck, I'm on my back foot, but I realized they just have this one critical vulnerability, and if I can just strike at that in this one specific way, I can turn the tables.
It's not quite the same thing. I can't really think of a good example of, like, heroic David and Goliath victory in that way. This question did make me think about the other game I've been playing this week, which is Hearthstone again, because Hearthstone got its new expansion last week, and I dropped out of Hearthstone a bit, and I play it from time to time because it's a fun game, but it is fundamentally random number luck based to a degree, and that can be very frustrating. Very obviously good players are good players because they know how to gauge the odds in those systems, like a good poker player. But it is still powered by randomness to a degree. So if you like being able to win because you can outplay an opponent with an advantage, it's not the game for you, because sometimes they just fucking win and you didn't get the cards you needed, and it didn't matter how good your deck was, you just didn't draw well and whatever. But the new expansion introduces a load of random things that are basically stupid, like really stupid, that increase the possibility of random bollocks happening in a way that I really enjoy. And they have additionally added a new emote on the little wheel of chat things you can say in Hearthstone, which is, it's called WoW on the thing, but every character says something different, but it always sounds like faintly sarcastic, like one of them goes, spectacular. Oh, isn't this amazing?
Does this replace the word sorry?
I think it does replace sorry.
Yeah, because I saw a news story that they'd taken the word sorry out of the game.
Yeah. But it's been, like, because people were sarcastically saying sorry a lot, but now they sarcastically go, amazing.
Yeah.
Which is almost worse.
It seems open to the same...
primed it because they've put a full stop after it when it comes up on the thing. So, like, when Jaina says amazing, it just says amazing, full stop.
Yeah.
You're just like...
That is... I can imagine that, like, being
cold.
something you'd say when someone uses some cheap-ass strategy that you just think is bullshit, like, oh, wow.
But it's developing this thing. So basically there's there's a bunch of new crazy legendary stuff that can happen. One of which is essentially like, it's Chthon, but it's Blizzard's Cthulhu, basically. And every person who plays the expansion gets this card for free, and 2 cards that go with it. And the idea is, they're dabbling with things that only a digital card game can do now. So you could not do this in a real card game, but Cthulhu starts out with a certain point value of damage and health. And there are loads of other cards that you can play that boost the power of Cthulhu wherever it happens to be, whether it's in your hand or in your deck. And these are called, like, cultists and stuff. So the idea is you have, like, Cthulhu's cultists show up beforehand. And the more you play them and the more different ones for different classes work in different ways, the more powerful Cthulhu becomes. And then when you play Cthulhu, it's like, he then deals damage split between all of your opponent's units based on his current attack value before he just becomes a really powerful unit. So if you buff him up to some crazy degree, he just becomes a nuke that you drop as soon as you've got him. But you can only drop him very late in the game. So that is one way that suddenly games can completely turn at the end. Cause
so you're both kind of gambling on whether you're going to get him? Like the more
whether you're going to draw him. Yeah. And like, you can obviously build a deck that might give you the power to draw him or make it more likely that you draw him, that kind of thing. But you might try and defeat someone before they have a chance to draw him. So you do have games sometimes which come down really close and then someone just plays Cthulhu. The better one is a card I was extremely lucky to get because I really wanted it as soon as I found out it was in it. And then I opened a pack and I got the golden version of a legendary called Yogg Saron, it's like Yogg Sothoth. It's all like, it's all slightly misspelled Lovecraft gods, basically. And the way he works, or it, I suppose, cosmic tentacle monster, is when it's played, it casts a spell, for every spell that's currently being cast by you that game. So, I run it in a mage deck, and so if I cast, by the time I get to 10 mana at the end of the round, if I've cast, 10, 12, 13 spells that game, which is a lot, that's, half a deck worth of spells, Yogg Saron will then just cast that many spells. But it casts them from any class on any target. And so it can either be the most amazing misfire, or it can literally turn any game. Because if you cast that many spells of your own choice, you could end any game immediately. So I had one where I was clearly losing. And I don't think the guy knew what I was planning, because I was just playing spells, cheap spells, just to boost the number of spells. Because like the only way I win this is if I get the most bullshit, because I had Yogg-Saron in my hand. So it was like, I get to 10 mana, and I just hope I get the most bullshit turn ever. And it was something like, I played Yogg-Saron, and then he made himself a taunt minion, and then he doubled his own health. Then he gave himself more attack. Then he gave himself charge so he could hit the other person in the face. Then he killed all of their minions. Then he fireballed them in the face. Then he punched me in the face, but only a bit. Then he silenced himself to get rid of all the bonuses he'd just given himself. Then he hit them again. Then he hit me again. And at this point, me and the opponent are both spamming wow. Which has become the joke. Like, whenever someone plays Yogg-Saron, they start to do random shit. And it's just now just, like, it's funny because it's like you get to the end of the game and it's like, now anyone can win. Who will find out who wins? And then it's just like, yeah.
Will they take that out of competitive? Because that's like...
It's too funny. Because there's a legendary from the previous expansion that means that...
Not sure how I feel about this.
It's so good. There's some amazing videos, but like, it's like there's one where it kind of cuts into like an amazing start to a turn for Yogg-Saron's someone else's game, and the video cuts into I don't know if you remember Epic Sax guy from that one Eurovision. Because it's that kind of like, yeah, feeling good, gonna win this. And then Yogg-Saron just starts fucking punching him in the face. Like, they fireballs himself in the face. And then the game is over. And the increasingly sarcastic use of amazing as Yogg-Saron just does whatever the fuck it wants. It's really nice in a way because it surrenders an RNG based game totally to RNG at the final stage.
I guess. I don't know.
I really like
For
it.
me, that feels weird. It feels weird to like have that as a viable competitive thing. Like,
you can't really rely on it, I guess. So it's like,
It's extremely unreliable. So if
Whoever's
you were
doing
playing
better
for
has the better
$100,000,
chance.
you would just not use it.
that's true. Yeah, I
Like,
suppose.
I have this sort of internal code of honor where, like, because obviously that was an example where it allowed me to win completely against the odds, because there's no other card in the game that would be that good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To completely just wipe out everything he's doing and so on.
Yeah.
But I also use it when I'm ahead, because it's like, if I've got it, I'm going to use it. Because you have this turn where you're like, because it's even funnier when you've got like a really healthy set of minions. You've got lethal damage on the board. You could kill them now, and then you play Yogg-Saron, and literally anything can fucking happen. And then you both go, wow, amazing, spectacular, as he like fireballs, pyroblasts you 3 times in the face and you just lose. You're like, great. Yep. The cosmic squid just killed me for some reason.
Yeah,
Goodbye.
that does
Good ranked
feel
game.
exactly like your card
Yeah, exactly.
to play, to be fair.
It's like,
yeah.
it is just spin. It's like, you know that bit in, I always, the Numberwang sketch,
Yeah.
the Mitchell Webb Numberwang sketch, where they go, rotate the board! And the board rotates all the way around, but it's actually the contestants rotate all the way around. There's another set of contestants on the other side, and then it keeps going back to the original contestant, and no one ever comments on that. It's basically the spirit of that gag, but in Hearthstone. And that's my odds story.
I don't have a particularly long running one or entertaining in that way, but just personally satisfying. What's the Counter-Strike level? I think it's one of the hostage rescue ones where the part of it's set in a factory. And
Assault?
Possibly. There's like a big area with boxes in it with a walkway around it and vents and things like
Probably
air vents and
Assault.
stuff. Okay. And I was on one side of this massive, like, cavernous room, and I am so bad at Counter-Strike, and I am, like, just... It's entertaining for everyone else and just not for me in any way, shape or form. And one of our friends is really good at it and really good with snipers in general in games. So he's kind of, I think he was like over the other side of the room with like an AWP or something at this point. And I just had a shotgun and I just blasted it in his general direction and he died. And it was the most satisfying, like, in your face and now I leave kind of moment that there has ever been. Also, I managed to kill, Shane, our friend Shane.
Yeah.
He's Shane O'Mad in the Dota community, if you care about that kind of thing. But he's also amazing at Counter-Strike. And I played against him in a game that he was just streaming randomly because he just said, do you fancy it? and I killed him one time. I mean, we're not going to talk about the other times that I did not kill him and that I died horribly, but one time I took him out.
See, with that in mind, Pip, I would actually put both of our recreational performances in Dota on the unsuccessful heroic victory side of, I mean, sorry, not unsuccessful, unexpected heroic victory. That's unsuccessful victory would actually, that's a good definition of how we did both times, actually. Second place and then 8th or something.
Eat my witch doctor alt.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, in the kind of qualifying round for this is the Games Industry's Dota 2 tournament. We were totally not expected to qualify for the main bracket, specifically against the team that we were playing against.
Oh, yeah.
And we fucking did.
A good story. An underdog tale for our times in the vein of Step Up to the Street.
It was, yeah, we were the Step Up to.
Speaking of your Counter-Strike victory against snipers, way back in the Action Quake 2 days, I had a friend who was also a career sniper, and there's a map, I think it was Urban 2 maybe, it's just the most played map, just the default one basically, which we played to death, and there's like a skyscraper kind of thing with most of it's just like flat textured walls that don't really have rooms behind them, but the top room you can actually go into and snipe from there, and because it's dark it's really hard to see when someone's in there, and he's killed many of us many times from there, and I don't really snipe, and I don't really have a specialty except throwing knives, which is like everyone has a knife and everyone can throw it, and I just hoover them up from corpses and stuff and get as many throwing knives as I can because they're just really satisfying. And throwing knives obviously have a fall off when you throw them, but I discovered that it's actually possible, when being sniped at from that dark window at the top of the skyscraper, to throw a knife high enough that it will arc all the way up and just land directly in his head. And I just heard the kind of gurgle of him going.
Good job.
Eat it, all of our collective opponents.
Yeah, friends.
Only the ones that are stronger than us. The ones that are weaker than us, then sorry.
Eat it, people who on balance deserved the rest of the victories they got against us.
Yeah.
Finally, Fergus writes, Dear Tangent and Tangent. Listening to the latest episode, it was interesting to hear Pip talk about her experience with the Battleborn open beta. This is pertinent given what we said earlier in the podcast.
Oh, yes.
Mostly because her experience with it was pretty much the opposite of my own.
Sorry, I'm just trying to make
real-time
appropriate
reactions
noises, and I think I'm making it really inappropriate and being weirdly distracting. Please I'll stop.
He continues. When I downloaded the game, literally all I knew about it was that it was a first-person MOBA by Gearbox, and had a penguin in a mech in it. I really had no expectations of it, so I just assumed that the way you were meant to play was by getting used to characters in the co-op story ops. Co-op story ops. Fun to say. He didn't write that, I said that. Before heading into the meat of the game that was the PvP modes. Playing it that way, I found myself really enjoying the game in a way I could never enjoy a normal MOBA. I'd always found the pressure of buying items, leveling up, and fighting other players, all whilst trying to avoid being accused of feeding, to be the exact opposite of fun. Battleborn cut out almost all of that, and also gave me a structured way to learn characters away from the critical eye of others that made me enjoy it a whole lot. Hearing someone else come at it from a totally different angle and bounce off it made me want to trot out the old, "You're playing it wrong" line, which is rarely helpful. However, I did wonder if the game would have been better off being explicit about the way to play it. I did just kind of stumble into what felt to me to be the ideal way to play. So my question to justify sending this email is this. Should games that offer multiple ways to play be explicit about which way is the ideal? Thanks for reading and keeping up the good poddin', Fergus.
I'm glad that we had that email this week to sort of balance out some of what we'd been saying, I think. I think with that game in particular, I didn't, or at least even when it directs you towards the co-op PvE stuff, I still find that because other people are there, you're on a team with other people, I still feel the pressure of other people, if you see what I mean. Like, it's maybe slightly tempered by the fact that you're playing against the E rather than the P, but it's, I don't feel like I would have had that experience that he talks about, regardless. The other thing is the game kind of does have a little bit of an idea of how best to play it, I think, or at least it has a way that it pushes you, because on the side where you pick, on the left-hand side where you pick whether you want to do the prologue or the co-op stuff, I mean the PvE stuff or the PvP stuff, there are actually 2 buttons, I think, one on top of the other, and one is for if you want to play it multiplayer online with, obviously with other people, and the other one is if you just want it solo, and that solo button is tiny compared to the other one, and it's also, I think, plain, whereas the other one is like a bit more exciting, and so the game is sort of, it feels like the game is directing you a certain way. It clearly thinks that it's, the best way to play it is with other people, but I think for me to have had a similar experience to Fergus, I would have needed it to properly push me towards the solo story stuff, but that's not what the game wants to be, I don't think. So I don't know, maybe it would be a different thing where if there was a game with so many different ways of playing, or that would work differently for different personalities, it should be a kind of question that it asks you when you boot it up and say, what kind of player are you? Or what experience are you looking for today? And then it can highlight the thing that it thinks that you'll enjoy. Like, are you looking for PvP? If yes, then it reorders the missions down the side or displays them differently, or are you looking to practice characters, in which case it could show you the offline stuff a bit.
The difficulty modes in Deus Ex Human Revolution do both this and also not very subtly tell you how you should play it.
Oh really?
Because they're called give me a story, give me a challenge, or give me Deus Ex. So it's like, would you like to just listen to a story? Would you like to, give me a challenge is technically normal mode, but then by naming the hard one, give me Deus Ex, it's like, you gotta play on this.
Yeah. Well, I suppose because you were saying about the way that opportunities work as well in Hitman, that's another way of a game.
I was going to say,
because that's, I don't know what they should have done differently, because it defaults to them on, which I think for Parish is the right thing. And so, but I turned them off, so I don't know what they could have done.
Well, I mean, the thing I thought was interesting is because, I was tempted to dive into the menu straight away to turn them off, but I kept them on for the tutorial, the weird cardboard boat thing. It's a weird game, Pip.
Okay.
And there is a bit where it says, actually, it's on the final part of the tutorial, which is where it introduces the idea of opportunities properly. It says, hey, this is an opportunity. This is how it pops out. Do you want to change it? And immediately takes you to the menu to change it. It explicitly invites you to go, you can switch this off if you want, but it's here. Which I think is a nice way to do it. So you don't feel like you're breaking the game. I set it from to the middle setting where it pops up to say that you found something, but it doesn't give you literally a waypoint to where the next part of it is.
And I definitely, I think I set it to minimal and then I think I set it off. But on Paris, it's really great to have the actual waypoints, because there's stuff like as the FSB agent, who I just never would have found in a million years. And I found so many things now that give me cool ways to do the mission that the starting point for it is just in a darkened room in a forgotten corner.
There is one where it's find a USB
one man
stick
in a crowd of 300 people. Or
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think I personally don't really like Battleborn, but I certainly agree that I think when you have a lot of choice to offer a player,
I think
having
there
that
need
kind
to
of
be ways to guide people through those choices in a way that will be beneficial to them, or that they will actually get the experience from the game that you're looking for them to have, whether that's giving them the option to do a tutorial or skip through it to the next bit, or whether it's giving them enough linear story that they've latched on to some of the characters, or whether it's, even just sort of how do you learn best? Do you learn these characters best by being in a co-op environment which feels safer to you but still involves other people? Or, like, going back to what I was saying earlier about the only thing that anyone ever said on chat, it was like a dude being quite hostile towards other players. Like, not outrageously so, but it was still like, it taints that experience, and it's an environment where suddenly it makes it so clear to you that it's not okay to fuck up, or that somebody might be there with a harsh word if you do. It's like, no, that's not my practice space at all. So for me, that sort of getting to grips with characters or becoming familiar with them, or perhaps even developing an affinity for them, wouldn't come from that if I wasn't comfy with MOBA style games already.
Yeah, for sure. That is all the questions we have time for this evening, because it is rapidly becoming Wednesday. If you'd like to send us a question for a future episode, you can email us at questions@crateandcrowbar.com. You can tweet us at crateandcrowbar. You can leave a question on the forum at crateandcrowbar.com/forum. Much as you can discuss this episode on Discord. You'll find a link in the show notes and on the sidebar of the website, which once again is crateandcrowbar.com. If you'd like to tweet us as individuals, a sentence which makes less sense the more I say it.
You could follow us as individuals.
You can follow us as individuals, which also sounds weird.
I would rather you followed me than
Find
tweeted
us.
Yeah.
Get in touch.
Find us on Twitter as individuals. I'm at C Thurston. That's CTHURSTEN.
I am at Pentadact, PENTADACT. This is Tom, by the way.
I'm Chris.
And I'm at Philippa War, which is PHILIPPAWARR. Yes.
That was a hard one to spell.
I know.
And that was Pip.
Oh, yeah. Should have gone with Pip, shouldn't I?
Couldn't go from
Should
the
have
name.
registered that.
Pip War.
Yeah, I
Not
was
too late to
there
change your
early
handle.
enough. Pardon?
Not too late to change your handle.
Actually, if you do get one of the sort of the principal names,
Yeah.
I follow Veronica.
Yeah.
And there's also Ryan, and they just get loads of shit from people who
I get
I think
people
they're
who
talking
want
to
buy
someone else.
them as well.
Yeah, that, and also just people who are talking to a different Veronica.
Gosh. Poor Veronica.
Poor Veronica.
Don't message Veronica. She's
Message-
not interested.
Message Pip. If you're angry at Veronica, it's Pip.
At Pip on Twitter.com.
Arr.
Thanks for listening, everybody.